Are there any citizens' concerns that are not on the, okay, I see two hands. I see three hands. Anybody for four? Why don't we go in the order of hands? Bob, you want to?
As you know, we have an article on the warrant to pay down the school lunch deficit. Many people in my town want an assurance that the $50,000 line item that you have put in for the cafeteria is not spent until any lunchroom deficit that occurs in future years is taken care of. Like last meeting, you're talking about taking out for a cafeteria director, or doing this with that $50,000. People are not going to vote for this if it's going to reoccur. It cannot reoccur. The towns are assuming a $270,000 debt to try to help the school district that way. And we want to be assured that it will not. So I know you put a $50,000 line item in, but again, there were suggestions last time about what you would spend that on. I want you to try and make sure that any future deficits come out of that line item. Say next year, for example, there's 32,000 or 28,000. It's taken out of that, and what you do with the rest of it's up to you guys.
David?
We don't usually go back and forth, but for clarification, the purpose of appropriating $50,000 from the general fund to lunch wages was because we don't have enough revenue in the current year. So we're going to use that $50,000 next year to supplement next year's lunch operations. And if we don't, we will, honest engine, we will lose money. We have to use that money.
Right, I know you do.
Yes, but we use it in that budget to, the question is it enough to avoid having a deficit?
Well, we really hope so, right?
Yeah, and it looks like it's gonna be, but there's not much margin built in.
Okay.
We miss it.
Because that line item is totally up to the superintendent and you guys. You can spend it how you see fit. The article that's on the warrant, that money has to go to pay down the $270,000.
It's a supplemental appropriation. It's apart from the assessments which are under the control of this committee.
Okay? I mean, that's all I wanted to say.
Well spoken. I agree.
Thank you. I think we all agree. Yes, who's next?
Lance?
Do we want to get Bernardston or Leiden? I don't really care.
Lance Fritz, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Town of Leiden. It's come to our attention that a petition has been circulated and that several towns are thinking about placing a warrant article to amend the district agreement. The Town of Leiden did not include a warrant article to in that regard. And the reasons we didn't are simple. The district agreement prescribes the method by which the district agreement may be amended. Now, it's true that a citizen can get the requisite number of signatures and present that petition to the secretary of the school committee. And the school committee secretary then informs the four towns that such a petition has been received, and then we would be obligated to place it on the warrant. The Town of Leiden has received no communication from the secretary of the school committee in that regard. Therefore, any warrant article that is passed in any of the towns would not be binding, in our opinion, on the Town of Leiden. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on just a minute. Ginny?
This is in reference to what was just presented, and do we have a school committee secretary?
We do. It's Pam.
Right here.
Oh,
It's not Ann, it's Pam, who is our secretary, or now she's called administrative assistant, but it's the same and the verbiage is just different.
okay.
Deb?
Well, I went around and I handed in the proposal. So I sought from my own town in regards to how's the process started? Do I put it on the select board's agenda and come before them? And I was told to send it to the town administrator. which the town administrator was away in a foreign country. The next best person was to send it to the chairperson of the select board, which I personally met with that person. And then I hand-delivered to the other towns. And for, Lance, I did speak with you and the town clerk and hand-delivered it to you as well. We had a conversation, and you did not indicate that at the time being. So I could force the subject by gathering up my signatures, but the democratic process should be that you take it to the people and have the people decide. That's what a warrant is. You put an article on the warrant, and the people of the township decides on whether or not they're for it or against it. That, to me, is a democratic process.
May I respond to that?
Yes, you may.
It shocks me and appalls me that a member of the school committee is so unaware of the district agreement and the process by which it is amended that I'm appalled. I don't know what to say.
I've read that
You-
agreement several times,
And you didn't come across that.
and this policy committee for the school committee has talked about it going back a couple of years ago, as well as it has been talked about for 9 months with the Heart Committee, as well as November 9th, 2017, we had a meeting, an educational meeting for the school board, and I specifically asked Mass Association of School Committee, the panel that was there, I specifically talked in regards to this and asked questions on how, other than you wait for the vote to happen from the town.
Did you
So,
read section 9 of the district agreement? It's pretty clear to me.
so again, I followed the suit of what I was instructed by talking to different people.
You were in
And
error.
even amongst towns, from one town to the next, I received different information from town clerks. So, I don't know what to tell you. I did what I thought was best, and I did it as a business situation for the betterment and of the school district and for students, and to bring in community awareness to the school and new ideas, fresh ideas.
Could we hear from our next public comment and then get to our
Excuse
agenda
me.
tonight?
Excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
I would think a place to start would be at the school committee level and have us all agree to whatever wordage would be presented to each town and have it all be exactly the same and go exactly by the district agreement. That would be the place to start with something like this. Not to go off on your own.
I did it as a
And develop
resident.
what you think is right for the district, and then go ahead and present to several towns. That's not the process. Thank you.
All right, let's go on to the next subject.
Good evening, Mike Townsley, Town of Bernardston. Just clarification at last meeting about the long-term substitutes being part of the $4,000 overtime for substitutes. I just want to verify that the long-term substitutes were part of that $4,000, and it isn't part of the teachers' salaries. I didn't know if you could clarify that for me, Ruth?
My understanding is that it is in the substitute lines, not in the teacher lines.
Okay, so
Because we're still paying the teachers when they're out, if they're on maternity.
okay.
So
So
we
that
would-
$4,000 included to pay for 2 long-term substitutes.
Yeah, I don't know
It
what.
it just came across that the teachers were abusing sick time, which I don't believe that that's the case if these long-term subs are part of that $4,000.
You're correct in that it's not that teachers are just willy-nilly using all their substitute lines. Some people do, but I would say not the majority. But we do have unexpected and it's not unfortunate because they're having babies, but people that go on long-term medicals. We've had like 2 or 3 of them this year, and we have a couple of maternity leaves. Without anticipating that, then that puts pressure on the budget, which is why we need to look at those sublines, and it goes like this. You really can't predict.
And I understand that. It's just not the way it came across when you presented the $4,000. You didn't know why the $4,000 was averaging that amount, and until long-term subs was brought up, and then there was some questions in the answers to that. I just wanted to clarify that. That's all I
That's
have
fine.
tonight. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm next.
Yep, you're next.
I would just like to, excuse me, Jeff Knight, Selectman from Leiden. I'd just like to clarify the process of when a warrant article is addressed to the town and how it's sent over. Getting back to the school lunch program, I would have thought that we would have got a letter, just like we get a letter from when they make out the assessments from Ruth Miller's office, but we got an email to put the $270,000 on the warrant from one of the committee members. And I think that whole process is, I mean, you're talking $270,000 to put on these town warrants, and it's coming from an email. It should be coming from your office, Ruth. We should have got a certified, not saying a certified letter, but a letter from your office stating that $270,000 assessment, how it was broken down. I mean, we had an argument in our town hall the other day about whether we wanted to even put that on there because it wasn't addressed to us in the proper fashion. You know, $270,000, Pat.
I know.
It comes through on an email.
I was not aware of that.
That's senseless.
Yeah. It's not okay.
It's not okay, it's not. And is it gonna be corrected?
I'll have the treasurer develop a letter like we do for your other assessments and make sure it gets out.
You know? And it's the same thing with the process of how we received the notification to change the district agreement. It needs to come from the front office, or it needs to come from the school committee.
I think that was given, I mean, Deb said she did it as just a citizen of the town of Bernardston. School committee had no control over it, nor no knowledge of it.
But we certainly would have looked at it if it was done in the proper fashion, and
Yeah.
it had the certified letter from the town clerk of Bernardston stating that there was, say, 150 names or 10% of the registered voters in the town of Bernardston. Then we would have looked at it, and we probably would have addressed it in the proper fashion.
Pat,
Yes.
we need a closing date on when Ruth is going to get that letter out to the towns. Not just she'll get it out sometime along, but how about by next Tuesday?
You know, the whole process is late now anyways. I mean, some of these warrants have already closed. We've closed our warrant. So any information that we receive now is
Have you posted it?
it will be posted, but.
It's not closed until you put two.
But with
what
the,
selectmen
you know,
want to
it
do.
means that we have to repost our meetings. You know, we're looking at the process of open meeting law violations, and it's
Yeah.
just,
Sue, you had something?
Since I'm on the end of the spear, may I respond, please?
Go ahead.
That request came from me as Warwick Town Coordinator at the behest of the town of Warwick. I worked with Bob Raymond on the language, and I distributed it the same way that Department of Revenue informs the towns of their free cash. Email is an entirely acceptable form, but apparently I wasn't clear. This is not an assessment. It should not come from the school committee. This is a supplemental appropriation. And it's about the only thing that the towns have any say over, besides how much
assessment they're going to vote. The school committee controls how to spend the state aid, how to spend the assessment money. But this is an instance, it's the only way I know of that a town can say, do this with this money and only do this and do not do anything else. It comes externally.
Can I,
Well, yeah,
can I
what I'm
ask a
saying is,
question, David?
Any one of your members could send us an email and say they want to put something on the warrant.
Can I just inquire, because I don't know all of the legalities around town assessment, not the town assessments, but supplement, what did you, supplement?
Supplemental appropriation.
Supplemental appropriations. If the school committee were to request it, would then, it doesn't sound like the school committee can request a supplemental appropriation.
I guess they could, it just need to be very clear that it's not an assessment.
So I guess
It's not
if
under
I-
the assessment. It
I'm
is-
just
It
wondering-
is so earmarked,
I'm just
it's
wondering
handcuffed.
whether it would jeopardize the town's ability to control the money if it were unclear.
You know,
I think our problem here is process, and Warwick's town meeting warrant and budget are posted. And my understanding is 3 towns put Deb's article on, and my understanding is that all put some kind of a school lunch deficit measure, and we have dueling legal opinions as to whether it can be treated as a 3-year contract or must be appropriated each year. So, you know, when you get legal questions, unless it's settled law, we can spend a lot of time arguing about it.
Okay, we have Sharon, we have Sue and then Sharon.
I just wanted to say, in October of 2017, the committee requested and unanimously approved the writing of a letter to member towns to assist with the resolution of the lunch program deficit. So I'm sorry it came down to the last minute. We have requested that happen a long time ago.
yeah.
Sharon?
I would just like to see a letter come from the superintendent's office.
Absolutely.
When you're talking about that much money,
Absolutely.
and to make sure that it gets on the warrants
Yeah.
in the correct manner.
Yeah.
I mean, as it is right now, when we sent we're gonna send our warrants out for review by town council, as well as probably all the other towns. And I'm sure there's gonna be a review of each one of these warrants, and one of the town council might kick it back and say, it's flawed.
Sharon?
And now there's no time to fix the problem.
Yes.
David, although I think that you were trying to do the right thing.
Speak
she
through the
already
chair,
told me
please.
She already told me I
did,
could.
I
If you were
did.
paying attention, you would have seen it.
No, you shouldn't be looking me in the eye and talking to me across the table. You should
When
be
I
addressing
sit-
through the chair. Make your point, please.
You're not in charge of me, David. You need to sit there and listen.
I think maybe we all need to stop and listen.
Yeah, well, what I'm going to say is that I think that sometimes, David, you cross the lines and you get your position in the town of Warwick kind of mixed up with what's going on here at the school. And as the chair of the budget subcommittee, that is unethical. The letter should have come from the superintendent to the select board, not from you. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, are there any other citizens' concerns to come before us today? Seeing none, let's move on with our agenda. There were minutes that were both sent electronically and in our package tonight. Has everybody had a chance to look through them? I see hands, but I don't see who they're going to. Martha and, okay.
I just wanted to note that for the Thursday, March 22nd minutes, I was there.
You were there, okay. And Jeannie?
We can't hear you down here, Pat.
Sorry.
Move the mic closer to Pat.
I've got it on.
Oh, you've got it on? Is it
I've got it on.
going
I don't know.
We can't hear.
I don't know. Sorry about that. I'm trying. Got my mic. Yes.
On page
I think Jeannie,
4 of your minutes for the meeting of March 22nd, Martha made a motion for $12,000. It should be $21,317.32.
We broke into two projects, $12,641.32 for carpet and $8,676 for gym pads.
Did you have that figure? You s-
It's a transposition. It shouldn't say 12,641, it should say 21.
21,
It's just
okay.
a number transposition.
All right.
No, it's not.
It can't be.
It's 21, it should be $21,317.32.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah, see,
They
that-
doubled
And
it.
the carpet should have 32 cents added onto the back. And I'm taking that directly off the back of the next page.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
it's the same number twice is what they did.
Jeannie,
I'm
you
sorry.
had,
My question was to say that I couldn't hear you.
okay.
You know, so it's really hard to know what's going
Yeah.
on.
We needed.
There's one right here.
Jim?
Jim,
Sit next to John.
There's one right here.
He wants to escape is what he wants to do. Okay, are they, Martha?
Okay, one other thing on the first page of March 22nd,
Uh-huh.
about halfway down, it says, on a motion by Pat to accept the March 15th minutes.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't believe it was by me.
Well, I don't know, did we have a meeting March 15th and March 22nd? Or was that not the February minutes that
no,
were?
we hadn't.
March
didn't we have an
15th was a
extra meeting?
budget. We
Yeah,
met on the
March.
8th and the 15th.
We did have a March 15th and a March 22nd.
Yes,
Not full
because we had a special budget hearing
On the 15th.
on the 15th.
Oh.
But not March 15th.
Yes,
Yeah.
March 15th.
Oh, it was put off, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Okay, then it says that I was not there. Okay, don't
Okay.
just leave this. The only time I was not present at a school committee meeting in the last
We will forgive you. It's okay.
6 months was the February meeting. So it says that we were not present at the March meeting. It's not that important, but I thought
Okay,
we would take my name off of that since I was there.
okay.
You see what
All
I'm
right.
saying?
I do.
Okay.
All right, are there any other corrections, Sharon? Sue?
I'm wondering, can we have listed whoever was not present as well as who was present at our meeting? And I think we've talked about this before, but when we get a pile of documents at a meeting, could there be a header on the document so they're identifiable, Ruth? And then could they be listed at the end of the minutes? Because if you try to go back to our minutes and find the document you're looking for, it's very, very difficult. And they don't have to be attached, but I like to be organized. and
These
it
are,
would just
these
help
have
me.
headers.
And I think it's legally recommended in the
No,
school
it's not
committee.
legally recommended, it's required. Open meeting law requires it in the
The
minutes.
MASC says you should do that. So I'm just wondering about tightening that up. So anything we get should have a header on it so that Ann can note the document and we all understand which document is being referenced.
This says Thursday, March.
Okay,
So am I hearing you correctly that you want a header on each one of these pages?
No, I want, like, for instance, at the April 12th meeting, you handed us a budget document. It had no header, it had no name.
Okay.
It was just a box.
Oh, you're
with
talking about
numbers
other
in it.
documents.
So it should
Okay.
say, whatever it is, Ruth's projections for ways to save money through the end of the fiscal year.
and the date.
And the date of the meeting it was presented at. And then on the minutes for our meeting, that document should be noted, that we reviewed that
I
document.
was here at this meeting.
Exactly. I like that suggestion very much.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on our minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept these as printed,
No, that's corrected.
or as
As
amended,
corrected.
excuse me?
Are we
So did
accepting them
you-
as corrected?
Yes, as amended.
I had a question, though. It was
Okay.
brought up that Pat probably did not make the motion.
Probably not.
On the minutes, so,
Probably somebody else did. But leave it there for now because I was here. All right. Now, so those were the 22nd. We have April 12th, special meeting, draft minutes also in front of you. Have people had a chance to check through those?
Is there a vote on March 22nd?
No, there wasn't, thank you. All those in favor of the March 22nd amended meetings?
Aye.
Aye.
I want hands because I can't hear ayes. Okay, and Robin's abstaining, correct? Okay, thank you, Robin. Now, going on to the 12th. Have people had a chance to look through these?
I move them as presented.
Jeannie has her hand up.
Okay,
I was actually present at that meeting and my name is not listed.
all right, let's put you on there.
Unless it was made with invisible ink.
Pat, is there an extra packet?
Oh, yes.
No, April 12th.
You didn't have one?
That's all right.
I thought that's
sat
when you didn't
where I wasn't supposed to sit.
Okay, is that the only correction anybody sees?
I was there.
I,
Oh, excuse me, I was not at that meeting. I stand corrected.
you were not?
I was not.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That I missed you.
I was home with a migraine
John, did you have?
from the,
All
was the result. Negotiations.
right. I would entertain a motion to accept these
Dave
as.
already did that. I just need a second.
Okay, I missed that. Mr. John seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye. You weren't there, Joe.
Oh, no, I wasn't, sorry.
One abstention?
Wasn't there.
Three, I think.
I'm abstaining.
Abstaining.
Three abstentions.
4 abstentions.
4 abstentions.
And who were they so that,
So Robin,
Martha.
Jean, and Deb.
David voted,
Yes.
so he has that right to do that? Accounts payable are this nice thick pink document. Do your homework, check this through, and call Ruth with any questions you have. Okay?
Okay.
And the expenditure report is on this pretty purple.
Very springy.
And Ruth has made it easier for us to review it and check it out, so since she's gone to the work of doing it, we all need to do our homework and do the checking. Warrants have been circulated or are going around. I don't know if everybody has signed them or not.
Or 27.
Which brings us to a revenue report. Do you have that, Ruth?
A revenue report?
That's what it says here.
One.
I do not have, is that always on our minutes?
No, that's something different.
Yeah, no, I do not have a revenue report.
School lunch program report, and usually Gail talks to that, and
I didn't hear what the revenue report was.
she does not
We
have
do
that.
not have a comprehensive revenue report at this time.
Why not? It was supposed to be.
It comes from the treasurer, because she's the one that does all the revenue.
School lunch David, thank you.
It's really important that we consider this other half of the budget. As it turns out, that's how we've been losing money, because nonprofits and governments do fund accounting, which means that after we make an appropriation, we work off that number, and we need to look at the other side of the ledger at the revenue to make sure that that's happening. And that's how we lost almost $1 million in the last 3 years, is because we followed a budget. We said we thought we were getting this, we said we approved spending this, and we diligently stuck to it and lost money. Well, the reason is we're only looking at half the story. So we need a revenue report, and if on any financial report or any kind of report, if it's not available, because the treasurer, last month's should be available. So we should have that in front of us. We're better off being 30 days behind than blind.
Could that be sent to us electronically?
Well, part of the problem is that this is not generated on our computerized system, and we had 2 sets of auditors come in here and tell us that, and none of us understood it. It's like been in the last couple of months that we've figured out this issue, that, you know, we computerize and report to the state on our expenditures, but our whole revenue side of the budget is lather.
So the revenues were not being put into the system for years, okay? So they were kept on general ledgers. And then we had a new treasurer that had some struggling learning the system. So we have, based on the last audit report, there were management letter issues that we had to take care of. And we have worked diligently to make that happen. And yes, our new treasurer is putting things into the system, but we're still encountering prior errors. So we're still working, and we can give you a revenue report. That's not a problem. I can get it for you. We're still uncovering, and I'm hoping that we uncovered the last piece of why things in FY17, back in FY17, were not working. So yes, you need a comprehensive report, but just giving you a report without knowing that the background of those revenues are accurate and we have a complete handle on it, because we have to go back to FY17, look at what was there and kind of figure out how that is affecting 18, and we're making sure that it's not going to impact 19. So it's not, yes, I think in a perfect world when we have really, you know, strong accounting practices in place, then it will be very easy to get the reports to you. And I have no problem giving them to you sooner than later of what we have. I just want to make sure that what we're presenting is actually accurate information on the revenue side. And that we are very, very close, and you'll hear in my other reports tonight some of the things that we've been able to do. So it's actually good news, but we still have to reconcile those books, and the auditors are coming out on FY17. That's going to be a big step, and then I think you're going to be fine with 18 and 19 moving on. So I just wanted to clarify that. It's not that, yeah, we can give them to you, and it may not, you know, in another month, it may be inaccurate.
I see David, and then I see Robert. I don't know which.
Mine's just a question. Was that another way of saying that the report is not meaningful because it may contain errors?
Yes.
We can print it, but you're going to get some, okay.
Correct.
So my question is actually a follow-up to David's question, unexpectedly. Is there a sense, do you guys have a sense, having gone through some of it, which parts of the report we should be likely to suspect? So if, for instance, you were to send us an electronic copy of the report in the state it's in right now, could that come with the caveat, lines X, Y, and Z are suspect and may contain errors that we are still seeking?
Yes.
Or would it be every line?
No, it wouldn't be every line. It's the revenue side, and I think we have a handle on it now, and that's why, you know, when we go through this purple sheet a little later, I think it will be clearer, and I'll be able to kind of, instead of doing it now, I'd rather do it at the time I have to do the report, to explain to you what happened and why and where we're at and where we're moving forward.
Okay.
Okay?
So, yes.
This is why we requested over a week ago that Tanya be here to explain this. And it makes me feel as though somebody's dragging their feet from getting us this information. And it disturbs me.
I did
So
request.
maybe we can have Tanya come to the meeting and explain it to us and bring us a printout.
Tanya is our employee. We employ her as a school committee. And it was my request that she come, and I don't see her here. She may have had something going on, but I didn't have any conversations with her.
It was a vacation week for her with her children. She lives in New Hampshire, so she had already had plans.
It would have been nice just to hear back, and I didn't have any idea she wasn't going to be here. David?
A month ago or so, I was getting heartburn about health insurance and whether we had enough money appropriated for it, and And so it devised a simple test, and that was, give me the invoice for 1 month, and I'll multiply that by 12. So we've borrowed money. We've called it revenue anticipation borrowing. In order to do that, we had to do a cash flow plan. We took that cash flow plan, which was based on our revenue estimate, and went and followed it month by month and said, we said we were going to get this much money. Did we get this state aid payment? Did we get this town? We can tick that stuff off. And I'd be a lot more comfortable with a very simple, dirty, but all-encompassing look at our revenue than a very detailed report that could be rent with errors.
Sue?
Yeah, I requested a copy of that cash flow plan a long time ago when I heard about the Department of Revenue looking into our budgeting with concerns. And I was told, Ruth, that you didn't have a copy, but that you'd look for a copy, and I have not heard anything since.
I'm not sure what you were referring to, the revenue, the cash flow for the...
Well, let me be clear. I
Okay.
said, I'm sure that when you requested the loan, you had to present documentation that described how you were going to repay it and why you were asking for it. I mean, that's sort of basic information when you go for a loan. And I wanted to see that in writing. And you said it wasn't available.
So it's not, we didn't create anything for it. For a revenue
What did you
anticipation,
submit to get the loan?
a cash flow.
Right, so why didn't you
But
give
that's
me a copy
not, that's
of it?
not what I can give you the cash flow, but
That's
that
what I'd
was
like.
not what you
Just
asked
give
for.
it
You
to me.
asked for documentation.
Well, just
We
give me
didn't
the
send
cash
anything
flow.
else in.
Is there any other information that people need? Martha?
I don't have any information, I just have a question.
Okay.
I might be the only one that isn't clear on this, but what exactly is meant by encumbrance? I have a vague idea, but I'd just like a simple explanation.
So, you have your budget and your line item says, you have $100,000. What you want to do is, you want to say, we're going to use this $100,000 in fuel. So you physically put in a PO that says, we're going to have a $100,000 PO for 100 fuel, so that line won't be able to be used for anything else. It'll be set aside. The money will be set aside to use only for that one thing. And that's what
Okay.
encumbering it is. It's saying, we're going to put a PO and nobody can.
Okay, so when we look at, for example, elementary salaries, where did I see that? Elementary salaries, the encumbrance amount, of course, is more than the balance. So in other words, we would have to be taking money from another line to pay the salaries. Is that,
Right.
is my understanding of that correct?
That is correct. Your understanding is correct.
Overspent.
Okay, it's
Overspent by
overspent, so it's gonna
80,000.
have to come from somewhere else.
Yep.
But some of them have unencumbered, some of these lines have a balance that is not encumbered.
Correct. So with
So-
the employees that are on time cards, their money is not encumbered. A salary position would be encumbered. And these change as people come and go. So this is our best, guess when we start in, February, March.
What was set aside to be encumbered.
Right,
and then-
right, but then
Okay.
people move from school to school, or, somebody leaves, somebody else comes in. It's kind of fluid, and that's why the salary lines tend to,
Have to bleed over into each other at some point.
right, but they're always weaving
yeah.
in what we need to spend on.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sharon?
So, looking at this, it appears that we could be overdrawn about $300,000.
Well, there's a balance.
Do you want to do the report now, because it might make it easier? I mean,
Do I have an answer?
No, it's not, it does not show that we will be over $300,000.
Or almost,
Not even.
so 280.
No, it shows that we have $490,643.98 remaining in our budget. Everything else was encumbered by the staff for exactly what they need to have. And so Brenda puts this, the debt service down below, which brings it down to 380,000. That is inaccurate because there was a different funding source, a different amount of money that was voted on by the town to cover the debt service. The 67,538 was budgeted for our expenditures. Does that help, Sharon?
A little, but
Okay.
it still doesn't tell me exactly, or it doesn't have to be exact, but a ballpark figure of how much we're overdrawn.
We're not.
We're not.
We're not overdrawn.
Look at the balance.
We're not overdrawn at all.
But how much should we be setting aside for those unearmarked,
So if you look at the.
unencumbered items?
So we're going to get into this, the conversation anyhow. The 490,643, you have to take $200,000 off of that from the conversation we had the other evening. And you had a list of items that we had set aside we're not going to be expending.
Is that the result of a revenue shortfall?
Yes, it was for the transportation shortfall from the prior year.
So we subtract 200,000 from the 490,000?
Correct, and you have $290,643.98 for the rest of the year.
How much do we need to reserve for those wage employees who are?
That is already been locked in from Suzanne and Brenda both went through and really carefully looked at exactly the dollar amount that they're going to need to get through the end of the year, and that's already included in these figures.
I thought I heard the opposite a little bit ago. I thought I heard you say that the salaried were encumbered and the wage were not.
No, that, she was asking me a question about that, but it's typically that's how we do it. But for this report and moving forward, I had requested that they let us know exactly what we need, and that's what this report actually represents.
I have a question, Ruth. You said, so if we take 200,000 from the 490,643, that leaves us with 290,643.
Correct.
And then would we take the debt service off of that amount?
No, the debt service has, the towns pay that separately from the assessment of 14,067.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it 200,000 or is it 266?
Well, when I was doing the list and it was 266, it was really 200,000, but I put in a little bit more of a buffer just to show which accounts we would have used.
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
glad
that's the
somebody
real
asked
reason
the
yeah.
meaning of encumbrance, because I'm still not clear. I thought it meant something that's under contract, like a teacher's salary that's, gonna be paid at the end of the year, or a contract for copy or lease or something that was spelled out, but we can just guesstimate, like supplies and things like that, and then put it in the encumbrance
Yeah,
line, or?
we can. We don't usually do supplies, but we definitely do the fuel. We definitely do some of the other, the known costs. What Brenda does is she puts an open she does a PO and encumbers it, and then she draws off that PO every time we make a purchase. And so that was part of why I asked them to take a look at this, free up those encumbrances that you don't need, because that was not really giving us a clear picture of where we are now at the end of the year, which we desperately need to know where we are. So that's what's been done.
Can I just say one more? Sorry, Pat. So if in September, when we had our final state aid figures, if we had voted a reduced budget and changed the lines and voted which lines we wanted to reduce, we would be matching expenditures to actual revenue. I mean, can we put that in the plan for next September so that we're not?
I think you're going to get there, because now the revenues we haven't really been able to see. That's why the auditors came out at the beginning of the year, because we couldn't see the revenues. And to get into all of the background of of the treasurer, well, you know, you've done
But
it.
what revenue can't we see?
Well, they weren't, it wasn't on the computer.
But
It
was in
wasn't,
the
and it
ledger.
wasn't being reported anywhere. It was just being put into whatever. It wasn't computerized, and that's why the audit report said you need to get your treasurer, remember that, all the findings about the treasurer?
Right, right.
So we went through systematically each one of them to try to get them aligned, which I think we've done, which answers your question. Yes, you should be able to do that next year.
But I'm talking more about the projected revenue that we're getting into match. I mean, the first line in that treasurer's report is matches this 14,067,000. We should have changed that because that was based on a figure that wasn't accurate. So once we knew what the correct figure was, we should have revised our budget and then be
Right,
working
that's
with it.
Right.
Yeah.
But, so for the next fiscal year, whatever the governor numbers are the numbers that are gonna go in your revenue. And then you should, unless they cut it, you should be able to definitely meet that low bar, and then anything extra is just extra.
But then we should edit the budget when we have the final figures, so that it's.
Right.
In September, we should review the
Right.
budget and come to what we need.
Yeah, I mean, they've already, the House has come out with different numbers for fiscal 19. The Senate's gonna come out with yet different ones, and
The biggest issue now, I think, is the enrollment figure, because we don't really have a handle on what our enrollments are gonna be. And I'm pretty sure I told you that we were gonna take a hit this year because they were like a year behind. So there was a big decline in enrollments that prior year. So our kind of like reset us. And we're at a reset at a lower number because we have fewer students. And it's not just us. It's everyone in the area. I mean, this isn't something unique that we've done something wrong or the kids want to leave here, or it's not that. It's the economy of this area that is making it very difficult. So this new budget line is essentially where you're going to have to live. And so then you have to make the decisions instead of cuts, decisions as to how you want to spend your money and where you want to put your money to be able to provide all the services you can for the students.
So I just want to say that in July, we met and we knew that the transportation number was wrong. That was off by what, $240,000 or something? We also knew that we had not budgeted anything for special ed transportation at $350 grand. And this committee requested a line item review of the budget and reductions be made. And we were told by you, Ruth, we will go back to our administrators and we will prepare cuts and we will meet with the budget subcommittee and then we will come back to this committee. And I have looked at those budget subcommittee minutes. They're incomprehensible, but the cuts never came back to this committee and they were never made. And that's why this is all so disturbing at this late date. And that's just appalling to me.
So am I correct to assume from this lighter or darker purple sheet that we kind of have a 2% cushion for unexpected expenses?
Yes, that is assumed.
Do we have a what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
2% cushion?
Cushion.
$290,000 out of a $14 million budget.
2% what?
Cushion.
Cushion. Okay, it was the cushion.
Margin.
Sorry. Okay.
That's kind of good news.
Well, actually, there is a good news presentation to all of this. We just we
So
haven't
let's-
gotten there, but
Let's move on to the rest and then we'll get to
Is
the.
this through the end of April or the end of the year?
this,
Yeah.
Says right up here, April.
Says through today.
right, it's April's report, okay? But what my staff has done is really looked hard, and they're confident these numbers are gonna stick, because they projected out the salaries, they projected out, and then those encumbrances are in there.
To the end of the year.
Correct.
All right. School lunch program report, as I said before, Gail is happy, she's honoring one of our super teachers. So Penny and her are celebrating at a wonderful celebration, I'm sure. Do you have a school lunch program report or not?
No, they're still struggling with trying to, figure out the financial piece of it based on what the state came down and told us we had to do. We have multiple people doing multiple pieces of it, which makes it even a little bit more complex. And so it's definitely a work in progress, and I know that you're looking to hire somebody, and it would really be nice if one person could oversee it, because I think that everybody having little pieces has made it very difficult to make sure things are, although people do a great job, so I'm not going to say that it's not accurate. They're working their hardest.
You just brought up hiring somebody, have you heard any information on that?
Nope, we're still looking for a job description. I think you have a committee meeting for PNC to do some job descriptions. We don't have any current. I mean, the ones we have are very archaic. There's a half-time person that I think that is what you were looking for. I'm going to be in touch with Gil Montague tomorrow, actually, and I'm going to find out if they have any people that are applying for full-time, because you may have to make that switch and go to a full-time. And even though one of the cafeteria workers, none of the cafeteria workers want that job, but to make it a full-time job, we have to have somebody be the manager and part-time task. It might be the only thing you have to do. We haven't had,
Do we have any students with us tonight? Or did they all go on the band trip?
They're on a bus,
They are on a bus.
trying to get to DC.
Hopefully they're
Oh,
off
that's
by
right,
now.
it's- they're in the
Oh, that's-
band.
Last time I talked, they were not there yet.
Oh, wow. They started early this morning. Yeah.
My phone buzzed, wait a minute.
Oh, maybe they're there.
Maybe they're there.
That would be nice. So our students are going to be spending the weekend performing, thanks to the beginning they had here. Thank you for all you do with those kids, those little people who grow up to be big people and help out the band. And are they there yet?
No,
Oh,
I haven't
gee.
heard, I'm asking.
Okay, you're asking, all right. So we need to start with principals. So let's just start with Megan and work down and around, and if that's okay.
So we have completed our first round of MCAS. We started with the English Language Arts and completed that before vacation. Allowed kids to have a little bit of a break, a couple weeks with vacation and 2 other non-testing weeks, and then we will finish with math and science and technology starting May 7th. And so far, so good. I will say that the tests, they've changed the 3-day ELA, or 3 sessions to 2, with an expectation that those would go longer, and from my experiences, they indeed went much longer. They were very long testing days for our kids. We had our April all-school meeting. As you may recall, our 6th graders lead those, but we had one 6th grade class away that day, so we took the opportunity to have our some 5th graders join our 6th graders as a transition to get them ready for their role next year. So that went really well. That was kind of exciting. And our focus was on Earth Day. And one of the things that I really love about our all-school meetings is it's very student-generated and teacher-generated. And an example of this was that we had some 3rd graders on their own decide to collect trash on the playground. They counted the trash. They took a picture of every piece of trash that they found, prepared a slideshow, and also prepared facts about Earth Day and the environment, and presented that to the school as part of our all-school meeting. And we had other components to that as well. So those are really special times that our school comes together each month. We also had a really great opportunity for teachers. Chip Wood is the person that's been working with our administrators as well as some of our schools, and specifically Northfield. And we had him come about a month ago, I guess, and he did some leading. He's been working with the adults around building a positive adult community, but this time he came in to work with our students and modeled some lessons around how to help kids learn how to be great listeners. And so that was really a great opportunity for teachers to get into other people's classrooms and observe and then debrief afterwards. So that I felt was a really positive experience for our staff. And it included it was for instructional assistants and specialist teachers and everybody that we could possibly fit into the schedule. Speaking of staff, we do have a couple changes. Our phys ed teacher is on medical leave, and so we have Joanna Wells replacing him for a long-term sub for the remainder of the year. And our instructional assistant librarian has recently resigned, and her last day was today. She found a full-time position, and so we have a long-term sub for the remainder of the year, and we'll have to post for both of those positions for the upcoming year.
Thank you.
That's about it.
Great.
Oh, and also our graduation date did change due to the changing of the last day of school. So that'll now be Friday, June 15th at 5:30. But I think that's in the agenda.
Great, thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
No.
I don't remember it being that case, but I don't completely trust my memory.
Well, I'm happy to say that we have some fun news to talk about from special ed, because a lot of times I can't talk about stuff that goes on. Special Olympics. Sue Scott is our Special Olympics coordinator, and on May 1st, and I asked Bob not to let me talk about this because it's happening here at Bernardston, but Special Olympics, 1 o'clock. You guys should come if you want to see a great event. Students from all over the district, including Pioneer, and Sue plays the little, Olympic theme as they come in, and they all do stuff with their buddies, and it's a really fun event if you want to come and see it. It's 1 o'clock, right, Bob? May 1st. So
May 1st?
May 1st, 1 o'clock here. So I invite you to come and see it. Excuse me?
1:15? 1 o'clock here.
1:15, if that was one.
Oh.
Okay, 1:15.
Oh, 1:15, it's hard to hear.
1:15, and it doesn't take very long, but, it's really fun. And they're very proud to have an audience. And I just want to add that sometime in June, we're planning a bigger event for Special Olympics down in Northampton. There's going to be a Western Mass kind of group, so I'm trying to get some transportation together for that event and bring the students and they have buddies that they went bowling with. I think you've heard about the bowling program that Sue does with them as well at French King. So the buddies they'll all get to go and see other kids from other school districts across the western part of the state. So I don't have all the details on that yet, but I'll keep you informed. So thank you.
Before you leave,
Yes.
I just want to share with you, and I'm not sure Chris even knows this yet, but because of her work and her admin assistant's work, she has diligently put in for every piece of all money that she possibly can. And this year, she wrote a grant, not a grant, but for extraordinary relief for circuit breaker. And because of that work, and those are not any easy things to put forth, it's very difficult, complex form that you have to, justify. And we will be receiving $67,727 that we have to use before the end of this fiscal year, which the good news is that we have this money, but we can also use it in this year, which frees up more circuit breaker for next year. So thank you, Chris, for all your work that you do on this program.
You need to thank Kate Baylog, because she
Well,
did
Kate
most
as well,
of the work on
yeah.
that. So I'd like to take credit, but she
Yeah,
deserves it.
That's
So-
great.
You're a great team, let's put it that way.
That's what I was going to say, you work well together.
Good.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
So just follow up to Megan's comments on the MCAS. We just finished up the ELA portion yesterday at BES prior to the vacation at Pearl Roads for the ELA portion. And I want to make a comment about probably the best speech to motivate students done by a teacher. And that was on Tuesday with Jen Comiskey's third graders, motivating them before they went into the lab to do their ELA test, letting them know that you are not second graders anymore. You have been working so hard this year. You know how to write. This is your time to show off. It just really elevated them to when they walked into the lab, their heads held high, and they worked their tails off. And some of them, I'd say about 11 of the students came back after lunch to continue on the test. 4 of them went to 2 o'clock, and 2 of them went to 3 o'clock. I mean, right to the very end of the day, using every minute they could for writing. I mean, it was awesome. And the same thing happened both days of testing for third grade. So that was pretty awesome. Other things happening, something really cool, if you would look at the email that you received with the new Bernardston Thursday News. Sue Scott also has an archery unit that she's been doing with the fifth grade, and you'll see one of our children with disabilities using a crossbow pistol instead of the bow and arrow because he just doesn't have the physical strength to be able to use the bow. But with this small crossbow, he was able to participate, and felt like $1 million to be part of the crowd. It was pretty neat.
Bob, can I just stop you before you go on? There's second grade MCAS now?
No. It was for a third grade speech, and she was saying, you are not second graders anymore.
All right.
You are
I just
third
wanted to make
graders.
sure I didn't hear that there was now
No.
second grade MCAS.
No, not yet.
Like,
Not yet. Give it another year or two.
Started in kindergarten.
All right.
Sorry.
They're gonna
Sorry if I didn't make that
Sue,
clear.
they're looking at pre-K.
Well, I'm waiting for it, right? I'm just.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
But it was just a great motivational
Yeah.
speech.
Okay, got it.
Other things happening coming up, we've got our spring concerts in May. The uppers are on May 21st at 6:30 in the gym. And then the following day on Tuesday, the primary concert at 2:15. Those are going to be great events. Chris already talked to you about the Young Athletes event. And then something really neat too, this was something that Ruth had put together for the elementaries, but I think it's May 2nd. I won't steal your thunder on that one, but on May 30th, Bernardston and Pearl Roads 5th grade students will be going to Boston to Fenway Park for a STEM event that's being held at Fenway Park. And in the morning, on the 30th, I'm sorry? Actually, the bus is already filled to capacity, sorry about that. But on the 30th, there'll be a panel of NASA astronauts that the kids will be able to interact with, and question and answer period, and lots of take-home materials, and then it rolls into a 1:15 baseball game. So it'll be a pretty full day. But that's happening on May 30th, and then 3rd and 4th grade will be heading to Sturbridge Village just after that. So that the year is coming to an end all too quickly, but with a lot of really good things happening.
Sounds like fun.
Graduation date, do you know?
It's
off the
on
top?
here.
It's
I
on
know-
our agenda.
On the agenda piece.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I want to make sure I'm fair.
Excellent.
Graduations, right.
True, Nadine.
A lot of good things going on in Warwick as well. Just before the vacation, we had our April all-school meeting and celebrated our readathon to let you know that the children, this is 57 children, read over 4,000 chapters in picture books and over 125 lovely long books. Lovely long books are books that are at least 80 pages long. So not bad for, 3 weeks and 57 children. And they come down with their pennies and they put them in the penny pole, and they get dollars for every lovely long book, and they put those in as well. And they, I have to make them vanish, disappear. They think I mail the pennies off to the Nature Conservancy, but it's a check. We stash the pennies back in the closet and use them again next year. Don't tell. It's a secret. Last weekend was the dedication of the bench that was put in for former Principal Wallace McLeod. I was unable to be there, unfortunately, because of family obligations, but I heard it was a very wonderful event. They had a nice turnout and a beautiful day for it, and I think it was very positive. I want to report that again, this is the third time now, Allison White, who is our kindergarten and pre-kindergarten teacher, has received a very prestigious teacher learning grant and opportunity for this summer. She has received a grant that is going to allow her to visit national parks across the country, and she is selecting those now to study traditional American cultures. And she'll be traveling and doing that. I'm so envious. I know she's going to start with the Grand Tetons, and from there I don't know where she's going, but yes, it's very, very, very special. Let's see. Then on May 2nd, next Wednesday, we are going indeed to Fenway Park for the STEM Day and for the, I think it's Kansas City Royals playing the Red Sox. And the kids, this is 5th and 6th grade, they're all going. The kids are very, very psyched. They will be driving to Alewife and getting on the T and going from there. Honestly, we have so many parents joining us. We've never had so many fathers who have stepped up to accompany this trip. Yes, it's going to be great fun, really great fun. And then after that, our 3rd and 4th graders will also go to Boston, but they'll go to the Boston Science Museum. So lot going on, and of course, in the midst of all of that, we're doing the MCAS, and yes, they are long, and the kids are working hard.
Thank you. And we have no other, Megan.
Grade 5 at Northfield is also going to the Boston trip on May 2nd.
Oh, wonderful.
And
So,
there's a lot of other field trips happening. 6th grade's going to Boston tomorrow and going to MIT, making like quiz boards with cell information. So I didn't mention all of them, but it gets busy this time of year.
So does that mean that all our STEM kids are going to Boston on the 2nd?
No.
For elementary.
At
Elementary.
elementary, it's NES and Warwick are going on May 2nd, and on May 30th, it's Bernardston and Pearl
Okay.
Roads.
Okay.
5th grade from Bernardston and 5th and 6th from
Okay.
Pearl Roads.
All right, that's what I just wanted to
And the high
clarify.
school's going as well. The STEAM people are,
what day?
I
And
don't know
that's
what
the
day.
MIT?
Do you know what day they were going?
I think they're doing the later one.
Okay, yeah.
May 21st.
Yeah, so, but yeah, they have a busload of kids going
Oh,
as well.
great, that's fantastic.
Oh, sorry, Pat. I just wanted to ask Elizabeth a question.
Go for it.
Elizabeth, is there a spring concert at the Warwick School, or
Yes,
is it?
there is. Well, it's graduation. Our
It's rolled
graduation
into
and spring
graduation.
Concert, and that's going to be on the 20th.
Of June.
Wednesday, the 20th.
Right, so there's nothing in May that's like a spring, there's not a separate spring
No,
concert?
we
It's
do it.
with, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, thanks.
There's the big band concert though. Here.
Tuesday, June 5th.
I mean, at Pioneer.
Tuesday, June 5th? Oh,
the instrument.
meeting.
Band.
Is that high school, middle school, and
That's-
elementary, or
No, it's
just?
all the elementary schools.
All the
Four
elementary,
schools come
June
together.
5th at Pioneer.
But they
Elementary
sound like high
band.
school.
That's band.
The band, right.
Tuesday, June 5th, 7 o'clock, Pioneers Auditorium.
Okay, thanks.
And there is a Pops concert
Seven.
at Pioneer on the 11th, 10th, Friday night of Mother's Day weekend, whatever day that is. I think it's the 11th.
I think those are on the district calendar too.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, okay.
Check it out though, because the setup and the prices are different this year than they've been in the past. But it proves to be an interesting, fun night. It must be the 11th because Thursday it's written down here, special meeting on May 10th is Thursday, so it has to be the 11th that the concert is. School choice program public hearing, it says 6:30. We're only a little bit late. So,
What happened to the?
Pioneer principal and the AD.
Oops, I'm sorry, we don't have an AD director and we don't have the Pioneer principal here. Am I correct?
The Heart Committee, do you want to?
But we do have a Heart Committee and I jumped over it, so I apologize.
Principal here, Pioneer Valley principal.
Are we skipping
I don't
over
know.
this?
I have no idea.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what could be another conflict, but Jean had something to do with her daughter.
Jen should come then. Somebody from Pioneer should be here.
No. She had a family commitment that she needed to go to.
Do you want us to sit out there?
What?
Want us to sit?
That'd probably be good because then everybody can see you. If you don't mind jumping.
Go for it, whatever you want.
At the Heart Committee last night, we had a long presentation by Steve Heaven, sorry. Steve Heaven from Mass Association of Regional School Committees, going through, in relation to the grant that was it Northfield and Warwick got last year, last August, and kind of laying out what they've done to help districts, towns and school committees kind of work together to meet these tough challenges with funding. And that went the whole time yesterday. And a lot of good ideas. They've done that kind of work a number of times in the past and have a lot of experience doing it. And I'm going to do about the...
Sure. The Heart Committee has been working on the district agreement. Two of our members have taken the feedback that we got over a year ago, I guess, from Department of Ed and incorporated it into a draft. I had a long conversation with Christine Lynch and Ruth Hirsch in the Office of Regional Governance, just about the draft that we had sent them saying, you know, we're in process, we'd love some feedback. And so they called me and said, you know, we'd love to work with you on this. We can see that many of the suggestions that we made are incorporated into the new draft. There were other sections of the district agreement that have references to Mass General Law or other things that are more complicated that were not worked on yet. And they said, that's perfect, we'll work on those with you. So we made an appointment for our next Heart Committee meeting, May 2nd, which is a public meeting if anyone would like to be there. We're going to do a phone conference with Christine Lynch and Ruth Hirsch, going through the district agreement and looking at any updates that they can help us understand and furthering our progress on it. They suggest that it will take about a year, most likely, because their recommendation is that since we are in the process of having a grant to sort of look at things like shared services or possible restructuring in our district in some way to make ends meet, that we have those meetings and then incorporate those changes into the district agreement as needed. And they also clarified some things aren't part of the district agreement and don't need to be in the district agreement, like shared services with another district for an administrator or something like that. So we're learning a lot. They're happy to work with us. And the recommendation is that the community have time to discuss possible changes and then a draft be created based on the community's input, sent to the Department of Ed for review so that they'll send it through a legal check and try to assure that the agreement will then be approved by the commissioner if it's approved by the towns. So, yeah.
Sue, that May 2nd phone conference, where and the time?
So we meet at the Northfield Town Hall in the Board of Selectmen room, and it's at 6:30.
Second floor.
Town Hall, 6:30.
Yeah. And We will meet again on the
First, no, second.
May 2nd, and then we're in a new 2-week meeting cycle because a bunch of our members wanted to be able to get to the Bernardston Select Board meetings, and we were on the wrong schedule. They were always at the same time on a Wednesday. So we've shifted our 2-week cycle so that that can happen. And we did make some nice progress with Steve last night, sort of honing in on what we think are probably the best ways to focus. And we talked about getting together with the select boards and the school committee to talk about that before we resubmit the RFP, so that we're all on the same page and we're all agreeing on our priorities for the grant. So things we talked about were things like ironing out shared services, understanding what does it mean in a district if you want to discuss closing a school, and how do you understand that process. There was one more. Do you remember what it was?
Like strategic planning for both the towns and the
right, sort of looking at that,
districts
yeah.
combined.
So we look forward to that conversation. We'll schedule some of those
Shared
conversations.
services overall.
Yeah.
Is there any questions of these volunteers? Thanks.
Yep.
I see no, yes, Sharon.
Can I go back to the principal of Pioneer Valley Regional School? For several months now, on different occasions, the principal has not been in attendance. And I would request that if the principal is not available to be here, that the assistant principal is designated to take her place and be at the meeting so that we can learn what's going on at Pioneer, as the other principals in all the other schools in the district have done. There are rumors going around that there's another couple $100,000 that's got to be cut from Pioneer, and we've got some concerned parents and teachers, and we don't have a principal or an administrator here from that school to talk to us tonight. I request that one be here every time, and I'd like to know what's happening with that budget.
Maybe we'll talk to that in just a minute, hopefully.
Well, we're not going to talk about rumors.
No,
We'll talk
but we'll
about
talk
some
about
facts,
facts,
but not
exactly,
rumors.
right.
And
That's
really
what I-
have to be careful about
Budget.
addressing people's names independently without them being here to.
We didn't name anybody.
Okay.
Is there any old business that is not printed? All right, moving on to new business. We do indeed have the school choice program. We need to vote to participate or not. It's what do people want to do?
Can you explain that? What does that mean, school choice program?
What it means is that if you would like to put ads in the paper and let communities outside of our community come to our district, it's kind of an invitation for them to come, and we would have spots available for them to take in our school.
And usually we fill them up with, it usually will not cause us to have one more teacher. It usually just filling the spots in the classroom.
So we asked the principals to give us ideas about what they would want and why. So Bernardston grade 5,
I'm still a little bit unclear about exactly what school choice is. I understand that people from other districts or other schools outside of our district can come in and apply to come to school here. What about towns within our district?
that doesn't have anything to do with the school choice program.
Explain that.
Well, the only thing that school choice is from the State Department of Education is that you can vote to allow students from other schools to come in. You don't have to have them in. It has nothing to do with inter-district. That's between you and the other towns. This is specifically about students outside of the 4 school districts, 4 school communities.
So then can you explain if a student within the district wants to go from one school to another, what the process is?
Well, it depends on if it's a special ed student. We typically will accommodate the needs wherever we absolutely can. There's been times when students have, parents have asked and there have gotten a no. And there has been times when students have asked and there has been a yes.
So it's relative to openings within that particular class in each school?
Correct.
And/or extenuating circumstances?
Yes, yeah, I think, yes, that's true.
Thank you, that makes it very clear.
Do you want to hear how, I'm sorry.
District agreement pretty well spells that out.
Right, and basically, you're not supposed to let them go from school to school, but there are extenuating circumstances for students, and we did start a program in Northfield that's a district-wide. So again, that comes into the regional agreement isn't really where it needs to be able to accommodate these new and different things that we're doing.
I do know that, Jeff, I just wanted it clarified.
Any questions from committee people?
Oh, I was just curious, because I was looking at last year, which is actually the numbers are quite similar on the total that we voted on for 17, 18. So when we voted last year at this time, in 2017, we had 92 spots available. I wonder how many of those 92 spots were filled. I mean, I was just curious. Does anybody?
Do you happen to know your building?
School choice seats at in the primary grades, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, those are the seats that usually we will get kids to come in. It's rare circumstance that we'll get someone from third through sixth grade that will apply for a school choice seat. And then once we get them in at the primary grade levels, typically they do hang on and stay with the district.
Go up through the whole.
And go through the system.
Through the whole school. Okay, so what we're getting now
are some of the same seats in the upper grades that we've advertised or that we looked for to fill last year.
But that's accounting for, I mean, you're obviously accounting for the kids that are going from like third grade to fourth grade.
Right.
But then you still have those openings.
Once they're in, they are ours.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
John?
I just want to make a motion that we participate in the school choice program for next year,
I have one more question.
up to the numbers.
Okay.
I'll second.
And Robin seconded it?
Yes.
Jen?
Oh, no, just one more question. So, if you get requests or applications or whatever, from school choice children to come into the district, the only towns they could come into would be, for kindergarten, would be, Leiden and Warwick, is that right, according to these numbers?
The other circumstance, if I can just add in, is you also have some discretionary seats that we're asking you to approve, just in case, let's say, a family moves out of town and opens up a seat within a classroom, and if an application happened to have come in for one of the other buildings that didn't have an open seat, that all of a sudden does, then we might be able to fill it.
It says that at the bottom, yeah.
Jeannie?
I have a question. Does this take into account school choice children that may have siblings coming? They have preference.
Priority.
Yes. But they're not part of the.
Oh, they are.
They would be part of these numbers. You're.
They're not within these numbers here that we're looking to fill.
You've already accounted for them.
That's right.
All right. So have they already registered? You have Tommy Jones in third grade. He has a brother that's coming into kindergarten.
He has to apply as a new choice student.
So that
And
seat is
in these
is
numbers.
is one of these numbers.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yes.
seat is one of these numbers.
Or in the discretionary seats.
Adam, would you like
I would
to?
just say the discretionary seats is problematic. If the seat actually opened up, you have to open up the seat. But the idea of having seats that aren't readily available, I think the department would have a problem with that policy because it could be viewed as discriminatory and that you're selecting students to fill particular seats. But if you did have seats open up, you always can open up new slots under the program. But it has to be very clear, it has to be publicized, and then you could have anyone apply to the new open seat.
So that needs to be, yes, Megan?
So I'm in a situation where our kindergarten numbers are teetering on the edge of 1 or 2 classes. And
Yeah.
if we were to spill over into 2 classes, that would change our availability for school choice opening in
Yeah.
kindergarten. At what point might we be able to, how might that be accounted for today
That would be
when we don't know the answer yet?
Well, under the statute, you're just supposed to pick the number of seats that you see available. So you have to make your determination on how many students you want to fill. And then if you go over, you have to go through a lottery process to see what students actually would be accepted. Does that make sense?
I saw a hand.
I just wanted to address the question about whether or not siblings have all been accounted for. It hasn't been posted yet, the applications for school choice, because it hasn't been voted on.
That's right.
So if there are new students coming in, siblings that the schools don't know about, they may not have applied yet because the application is not available. So there's really no way to know.
So you don't know.
Megan?
Well, I might say that we've held a kindergarten registration already, and at that point, we would sort of get inquiries. And at that point, we would have to say, school choice has not been posted yet. So it's likely that, I can't say it's guaranteed, but it's likely that we would be aware that there is a younger sibling seeking to come in.
The siblings have preference, that's the only preference. So if you have 7 spots, they're going to get one of them. And if you had 10 applicants, the rest of them would be lotteried in.
So I guess the question is if we vote these recommendations, there's no slots listed for Northfield for kindergarten. If we don't include the 25 additional possible openings, does that exclude the possibility of accepting that sibling?
If
Well,
it
the
tips
sibling
over.
would get the first
Yeah.
seat. If there was no,
It'd
if
be
there's no
other
seats
kids.
available, you couldn't just take the sibling.
Well, she was saying
Yeah.
that she's not sure whether it's gonna be 1 or 2 classes, so if it does end up
Yeah.
with 2, then there are gonna be openings.
But-
So would we have to vote another one of these next time, or?
You'd have to open up a new seat and publicize it.
I just wanna make
The
sure
sibling only
we.
has priority. They don't have, you don't have to take a sibling. If there's no slot available, there's no preference. You know, they would not automatically be allowed into the class.
They just get to the top of the list if there is.
Did I see the hand go up, Megan?
So could we post for openings, potential openings, or once we post and we say 2 openings, that means we have to take 2 students?
No.
So we could post with sort of a projection of the
Well,
possibility?
if people, yeah, you're supposed to, however many seats you think are available to fill, with the idea that obviously, as you didn't last year, you didn't fill all the seats for a particular class. But,
So-
yeah.
So you could post, and then as late as the first day of school, you could, if that spot is open, you could fill it, and if it wasn't open, then it didn't need to use up the numbers, is that right?
Yeah, it would just remain open all year.
Okay.
If you had an application, you know, you could fill it at any point.
So what do you think our action should be? To vote to enter in with a change of numbers, or how do we word it?
I think it would really be what you projected without this language about additional seats at discretion.
Okay, but if we wanted to add in a number here,
Yeah, you could increase the numbers, consider that for next time if you don't want to vote it tonight.
when is it important to get those school choice numbers in?
Isn't it June 1st that has to be in?
Can I ask?
Yes, Robert?
I may be understanding what you're, misunderstanding what you're saying, but it
Yeah.
sounds to me as if what you were saying is we could post the slotted numbers without the 25 additional.
Yeah.
And then at our next meeting, if those numbers at NES should change, we could then vote on adding additional seats.
that you could increase it between now and June 1st, for sure. I mean, you might as well.
What if
Yeah.
in August, we find that we have 2 classes of kindergartners? Could we call a meeting and vote to add additional seats and then put out advertisement?
Yeah, I mean, schools do it that way. You're really
Okay.
supposed to have it in by June 1st, but
It would be a revision to the numbers that we put
Yeah.
in June, on June 1st.
Is there any way to word, we have voted this line
Many years.
every year since
Every
we've
year.
participated. So
all I can tell is I wouldn't do it going forward. because
Is there any way to reword that to, no.
What,
Leave it
what,
like it is.
So can I ask for clarification? I don't know how many kindergarten spots, how many would you think you might, if you had to split the class in 2, how many would you think you'd need?
Maybe 4,
Okay,
5 at the most. I would say.
so we could put that in there, but we're not under any obligation to advertise or announce that they're there until we need them. Is that true?
You have to make it available to anyone that would want to apply what seats are available, and that's what's submitted to the department, is how many seats you have available for each class.
Right, so we would have that information, we would just not
If they-
actually put announcements out there about it until we knew if the seat was going to be there. I mean, if we were going to split the class or not.
I don't know how you wouldn't publicize. It has to be known to people that want to apply to it that you're taking, you have availability and how many seats.
Let's just change it in August if we need to.
Yeah.
I thought we just said you had to do it by June 1st.
all right.
Things change.
I mean, ultimately, you should project it by what you want the class to be. I mean, you have that ability to do that at this point. So if you wanted 2 classes, you would say, I have 4 openings. If you want 1 class, you'd say, I have 2.
But when you don't know what you want,
Yeah.
it makes it a little more
It may
complicated.
make sense to wait until your next meeting and have an idea of what you really want to do with that class rather than,
Would you, yeah.
is your concern how many residents you have that will be in the program right now? Is that the unknown?
No, the unknown is
Right, yeah,
people
no.
moving in.
Yeah,
Because a college might possibly be moving people in because a new college is starting up in town.
they just seem
You
to
know,
pop up.
It's, yeah.
Last year, we had quite a few last-minute enrollments that put our numbers quite high in kindergarten.
Yeah. Well, if you think, if there's a good chance it's going to happen again, you may just want to open up 4 seats and plan on 2.
But you did. Well,
Right, but then there's the cost of a teacher, and then what, you're getting $5,000 per kid. I mean, it's not quite that simple, but we
Yeah.
can maybe wait till June, Megan, you think? Okay.
I could send you more information.
Yeah, that would be
Okay,
great.
that would be
good.
helpful.
So we will pass over this.
No, you
No,
need
we
to
have
vote
to
it.
have something going.
I know. But we're not going to vote on this. Is this right? Is this what
You have to then
what's
have
your
somebody
direction?
rescind the motion.
It's your vote. I mean, you can.
I know, but we either need to rescind this
Why not add
vote,
seats even if we don't fill them?
or we need to vote again, or we need to just hold on this until June or
We
May.
don't have to,
No, we need to announce this.
Right.
We need to vote.
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth and then Kathy?
Oh, Jean's trying.
Elizabeth, you're up.
I think it would be wise to, at least from my perspective in Warwick, to vote on what we know we need now.
Yes.
If we delay voting on any, then we can't
Right.
advertise
Okay.
any.
So I'm willing to amend the motion to exclude the language involving the 25 additional openings at administrative discretion.
No, I want to keep it.
I'd like to hear from Kathy.
Well, I guess I'm echoing Elizabeth's concern to some extent. I mean, from past practice, we're already a month late. This decision has historically been made in March. We used to have a line on the website that said the application will be available as of whenever the school committee meeting was in March. And if you have anyone thinking about sending their kid,
one of the 4 elementary schools or Pioneer, they need to know now. I mean, we were pushed to have this in place in February, not too long ago. And here we are, it's the end of April. And I guess, council, I would ask for some clarification, because I keep hearing posting of numbers, and I understand that we only have so many slots in each grade level.
Yeah.
But it is certainly my understanding that when we put an ad in the paper, we don't say, we have 4 slots at the BES kindergarten. We just say we have slots in Bernardston in kindergarten, 3rd grade, 6th grade, whatever. We don't advertise the number
How
of
many
slots.
slots?
to
Yeah,
the
well, I'm
public.
saying you have to submit the numbers to the department. They have to know exactly how many
Right, but-
spots you have available.
And then, because parents will call, some will call and ask,
Yeah.
and the answer has always been, apply. You know, apply, and then
Yeah.
let us see how many kids we have in that grade.
Okay. All right, there, Ann, could you read back the motions?
Well, the motion was to accept the recommendations as written.
I'll second that.
It's already been
Okay.
seconded.
Okay.
There's been lots of discussion, and now Robin is proposing to make an amendment to remove that discretionary line per the advice of council.
Second, the amendment.
Do you want to make that an official amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, you seconded the
Well,
amendment.
she said she'd be willing to.
Oh, okay.
I will officially make that an amendment.
Okay, so I get it right. You have to vote the amendment and then the motion, correct?
Correct.
All right. So Robert's amendment is to leave off the bottom, which is to plus up to 25 additional openings. All those in favor of that amendment? It looks unanimous to me. All right. Opposed? Okay, it is unanimous. Now we're going to vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion?
To accept.
Okay.
To accept the school choice.
Opposed? Was that, I didn't see, Deb, were you up? Okay, that was unanimous.
Any abstentions?
No, that was it. Okay. Vote on business manager, that's not going to happen. We are still exploring the options for business manager and doing some delving into ideas and where we want to go from here. Ruth, Department of Revenue meeting, plan for eliminating general fund deficit.
Okay, so I just find my paper here. Moved them around. Okay. So when we went over the FY17 budget, and I had this here for you, but I don't think I'm going to give it to you because it doesn't have the appropriate heading. But what I wanted you to understand is that we've been working on the budget really hard, trying to, look at the revenue side and to really figure out what is happening with the revenue side. Yep.
Jeannie just had her hand up.
Yep.
Right?
Ruth, when you say "we," could you say who "we" is?
Okay, yeah.
That would be helpful.
Okay, so we is our new treasurer, Tanya, with the help, some help with Brenda and with Suzanne because of their knowledge of the staff. And we also, I also asked Stacy to come back because she knew the system when, way before. And we collectively looked into, yep.
Can we just pause for a second? There is an echo.
Is it this thing? I can take this off because
It's a speaker.
Okay. I just can hear you twice, and it's very confusing.
I have a loud enough voice that I really don't think, sorry.
People
Okay, just
It's
shout.
better?
Excuse me, can we change the heading on that if you tell us what the correct heading is? Can we?
Well, it's not really a heading, it's just
Well, you said it was a heading, so I
No,
said-
it's lacking a heading, and that's
Oh,
why I
well,
decided that
We
maybe.
can put a heading on so we can see your figures.
Well, no, that's okay, I just don't want to, it was very clear to me that it wasn't, appropriate to not have a handout without a heading, so.
So you copied all that?
Pass it out, they'll write it
That's
on
okay.
it.
We'd like it, please.
You would like it?
Yes, please,
Okay.
thank you.
You sure?
Maybe everybody
agree on
can,
the heading.
everyone can date it themselves?
Put a heading on it.
I just can't hear what they're saying.
That's what. So she was, she would have delay. And it would get.
You all set?
So it's the expenditure budget balance report. You've got the heading right here, right?
Okay.
Fiscal year
So this is
2016-17.
FY,
But it's 2016,
seven-
2017.
Right, yeah.
so it's FY '17. So that's where all this kind of came to a crescendo, was in FY '17. And so I had Stacy, who was a prior employee of us, go through into the records to try to figure out what was going wrong with the revenue, because they were projecting about $600,000 deficit. And it didn't make sense, because we watched that budget really, really carefully, and we do watch the revenues the best we can. So if you flip to the back page, so basically, we went through, and I looked at every line, and then if you look at the back page, because we have to look at our expenses and then see if in fact our revenues support those expenses. And at the very bottom, you'll see that to the right column, in the very bottom column, $14,060,280. That was the dollar amount that the community voted the budget. And you can see that as we go down to the right side, and this is all stuff that has been closed now for a while because we're in the next fiscal year, we actually show a deficit of $115,072. And so that was the number that was eluding us. And the reason we found out was that there was a substantially large revenue that was posted inappropriately twice, and then 3 times, and then reversed. And so it ended up that that line was making it look like an inflated deficit.
How on earth did that happen?
I know how it happened, and we were really lucky to have a very talented treasurer now, and we just didn't have it before. It doesn't do us any good to go down the road to say why, how, this is where we are. We've done a lot of work. There still is some more work. I'm very anxious to have our auditors come out. They did an excellent job. I think they're going to be really happy with us cleaning up most of those management letters. We didn't only clean up the general fund, but I asked specifically for them to do an audit of our athletics. I asked them to do an audit of our activities accounts, and so just so that we could clear the deck and know exactly where things were. The results of those audits were that we really needed to clean up our program with regard to how we transfer money and handle money, especially when the revenues are coming into the district. We've set up those procedures and protocols where, the money's coming in quicker, it's getting into the bank quicker, it's following the chain, 2 to 3 people counting and recounting. So none of that stuff really happened in FY17. It wasn't, nobody was doing anything wrong. It just wasn't ever a practice that was, really regimentally carried out. So at this point in time, it looks like our deficit for FY17 is 115,000 and change. And then the numbers you have in front of you, you'll see which were up and down. So
You said that was mostly one area, one
okay,
item?
so let me tell you exactly what it was, because I went to Suzanne and said, I keep hearing this that we have this huge deficit because people left and they took all these benefits with them, and that's just not what happened. So according to Suzanne, it had nothing to do with the layoffs or people choosing to leave, because if you choose to leave, you don't get the benefits of retiring from here. So they left in their salary or whatever. So that wasn't true. People did they made the decisions they wanted to make. But she did tell me that there were many new plans in FY17. In fact, she said there were 17 new health plans, people coming on to our health plan in that fiscal year. And each one of them costs you about, she said, about $15,717, $17, something like that, about $15,000 and change, $15,700. So when you multiply that out by the 19 plans, it comes to 297. 19 plans, $15,217 is the average. She picked a plan that most people will choose. So you multiply those and you get $298,614. Now obviously 19 people didn't all come in the door on the first day and ask for plans. They came in gradually, but that gradual slope made that deficit happen. Is that clear? Or is that not clear? Go ahead.
Can I just inquire, because there's a little memory in the back of my head about talking about health plans, I think during this time. Did we not have a number of employees that had previously been insured under spousal plans that switched over during that year as well?
She did not say that to me.
Okay.
I don't know if she did. We didn't.
Something I remember talking about at the time.
Okay, and it might have been, I specifically asked her a question about why, because when you look at this, you're gonna see the health plans are higher than we estimated. And we always save about 3 or 4 plans to not touch them. She told me yesterday, she said that, or today, she would used to save like 10 or 15 health plans just in case. But we don't have that level of, if you tuck that away, you're not using it for, services for kids, and then if we have this extra money, but, that's a decision that I think the subcommittee should get together and really talk about these kinds of things.
Did she physically show you that 19 people signed up, extra people? Did she physically show you, or did she tell you?
No, she has it. Have you seen her book? We had a conversation today.
Okay, and
And
she
she
showed
told
you.
me this is what happened, because I asked her.
She told you, but did she show you?
No, she did not show me. But
I'd
she
like
did.
to see it.
Well, that's fine. We can show you, and we probably can't show you their names, but.
Well, I don't want
right.
names, I just want
But
numbers.
Suzanne is very good about
She is, I agree.
understanding it, and there had to be a reason why all of a sudden the health care was way beyond what would normally be. So anyhow, so that was and so it's not $290,000, but that addresses why we had $115,000 shortfall, is that piece of the business just expanded. So so that's where we're at, and I think there might be a few little more changes as we move along, because we're gonna ask the auditors to look deeply at things, especially the things that we found that were inconsistent errors. So that's where we are with FY17. Okay? So it's pretty clear, and there's a deficit there. The other funds within that year, they're fine at that point. We had some school choice money, we had some circuit breaker money, there was this things there. So with the general fund, that's why and where we are. So what do we do about it? So we got to look at, if you're all done with questions on the FY17, I just had to bring you back to try to give you that figure, which is much less than what was being understood. Yeah.
So how much did we bring forward from 16?
Yeah, I don't know that, but I can't open 16, but I'll find that out with the auditors, because there was a deficit.
$85,000. Wasn't that our structural deficit? It was in the report.
Can't hear you.
I believe it was in the financial report from the auditor that we had a deficit of $85,000 for 16.
So there's your number.
For FY16, is
I
that
mean,
what you're saying?
I have it with me, I can
Yeah,
look it
I
up,
did
I can
not-
tell you.
Right, but, so yeah, no, that whole 115 didn't come from that year. The deficit started in the FY16 year.
So the 115 is an accumulated?
Cumulative.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, we really did do okay, but, so that brings us up to this year. But, and, oh, you know what else happened in FY16? That was bigger.
16 or 17?
16. But
16.
You're talking about FY16.
Now we're going back to
16,
Going
17.
back, okay.
the reason 16 wasn't worse was because, unlike FY17, I underestimated the revenues. In FY16, I had purposely put the school, the regional transportation lower, because it usually came in lower. So there was money left over, and that money just left and went toward the deficit. And then in 17, you know, where I had under budgeted so much, I increased it a little, and that clearly didn't work out well for me. So how would we cover that deficit moving forward? Because that's what we want to try to do, is try to get out of deficit so that at the end of our current fiscal year, moving into FY19, you're still not going to have a lot of money, you're still not going to have a lot of stuff, but you're going to at least be on the track of being fiscally responsible and current. So that's where it brings us to the purple sheet, where you wanted to, you know, so this is this year's, right? So the principals, and you can ask them, because, you know, I asked them to weigh in on this whenever we have something that we need to look at. And I said to them, what are we going to do about our current fiscal responsibility right now? We know what the number is, but we have, you know, as you know, I worry about this substitutes. We're getting closer to May, you know, and May, there's some things that go, but, you know, so we have about a couple $100,000. They have identified cuts in every one of their schools, and they, you know, they really did a nice job, really digging deep and thinking, what can I not spend or not use, or what can we not do? And so after it all said and done, what we were thinking about doing is, we have those cuts set aside. They're reasonable, it's something, it's not personnel, so it's something.
Can you show them to us?
No, I didn't bring cuts exactly. I gave, what I'm telling you is what the principals and I had decided. If you wanted,
And you need to report back to us on it,
I
because
am.
we're concerned. No, I want to see it in writing.
well,
Yes, we all do. I would like to too.
okay, well, at what level, so what do you want to see? What they think they may want to
Yeah, I
cut?
want to see the plan for what's going to be cut to help us come out okay at the end of the year.
So I guess what I'm saying to you is, the budget, the way it is right now in this purple sheet, With 200,000, we can be fine by the end of this year.
That's me taking your word for it. I wanna see the plan for the cuts. It's a reasonable request, Ruth.
Well, I'm
We're
not,
in a
I
tight
guess I'm
spot.
lost. What I'm saying to
I
you
wanna
is.
see, at Bernardston, we're gonna cut this, and at Northfield, we're gonna
Well,
cut this.
But we're
And
not.
I just wanna see the plan.
We're not
You-
planning on cutting anything, is what I'm saying to you.
Well, not spending, okay? You're saying that you've made a plan with your administrators. I'd like to see it
Go
in
ahead,
writing.
Elizabeth.
May I just speak to it?
Yeah.
You know, Sue, things evolve differently over the year in each school.
Of course.
And in my school, for instance, I've been very fortunate that I have not had a lot of illness in staff. I've not had, you know, need for, so my subline, for instance, is in good shape. And there are other places as well where I have some money left. And that money can go to help in other schools where they've had unexpected illnesses and surgeries and things where people have had to go out. So, you know, I'm not spending, for instance, I can just talk about Warwick, money that was set aside for some special supplies, ELA, things like this. We'll forego it because we want to get out of this hole. And it has been a tight year, but it hasn't been, you know, we're not, the creativity in the teaching and in the learning is not strangled. I mean, we can forego these things for a while. And I think rather than just say from school to school, because it might look very unfair about who's giving up what. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I just think because we're in such a tight spot, and because it has been, I have felt that, Ruth, you have been very unresponsive to our concerns about the budget and to need to see documentation of how we're planning to manage the budget better. I'm just asking for documentation. I trust your decisions. We started this year with a known huge problem, and we have not been provided with the proper documentation to show us how that problem was going to be managed. And we are still not getting that kind of
This
documentation.
sheet actually does give you a lot of information. It doesn't break it out by school, but it gives you a lot of information. That's what we're talking about.
It also asks me to trust a lot.
I have a question.
I see hands down there.
Denise had her hand up for quite some time.
Okay, I didn't see it.
Sue, what were you talking about, the big problem we started the year off with? What were you referencing just now?
Well, I talked about the
You said
fact that our transportation revenue estimate was significantly off.
You made the
And I
statement that we
talked
started
about-
with a huge problem.
In July.
I want to know what that problem is.
I'm telling you.
$115,000.
We overestimated the revenue we were gonna get from the state for transportation, and we had nothing in our budget for sped transportation. That was a $350 number. So there were some significant changes that needed to happen in our budget, and we knew that in July.
Which year are we talking about?
And we were told that we would hear back on the plan for how that was gonna be managed, and we did not.
Which year are we talking about?
This year.
This year.
I feel like a plan has been evolving all year. And I think, given what the state says and what they do being quite different, and also the fact that we didn't have a computerized system. And Jane Dutcher mentioned at a previous meeting that she was looking back at old school meeting minutes, that in 2008 there were deficits. So what happened from 2008 to 2016 that none of it was addressed? And what have we inherited from all of those years that now have to be dealt with? We're in the process of trying to figure all that out.
So Jean, I would suggest to you that if this committee got more accurate ongoing information, we would be able to come out better in the end.
And you're probably correct, but what happened under previous administrations? Most of these members were on the school committee then, so why wasn't it addressed then is all I'm gonna say.
Martha?
This is just a really simple question. I'm not going to go back and cover past history right now, because Sue, okay, first of all, the purple sheet, am I correct that this is, of course, FY18?
Correct.
It does not show a deficit. It shows, like John said, a bit of a cushion, not a lot.
About 2%.
Right? So, Sue, are you referring to wanting more information on FY18 or looking ahead to FY19? That's all I want to know.
Well, I think going forward, we need better reporting overall.
Right, so you're talking
There
about...
is this pattern of recognizing a problem, knowing there have to be cuts, and then not getting reported back to about the plan for those cuts.
So for FY19, because I'm not on the budget committee, and I'm sorry if I'm asking questions that everybody else knows, are we still in a position of having to cut a certain amount of money? Thousands of dollars?
We don't know yet.
For FY19.
For FY19 I'm talking about, not FY18. Or do we know that?
We don't know yet, because we've just heard about a $115,000 deficit from last year, and we don't know what this year's is.
Do we
But
know
this-
if there's a deficit for this year? Because my understanding of this sheet was that
This-
we
We're,
are ahead.
we have a cushion for this year.
This
this
is what
year.
I'm not understanding.
So I think that's where some of the confusion's in, and I may be confused in this myself, but earlier in the meeting, we're saying we got a little bit of cushion between now and the end of the year. That's still a
Right.
couple months.
Just, right.
Maybe. Just a few minutes ago, Ruth said they've come up with a plan for
Is
now
it
into
like
the
a
action.
contingency plan?
I thought they came up for a plan for FY19. So you were talking to principals about...
We have to make plans for both. We can't, it evolves. There's not like a magic science to this.
Can
And what I would suggest, because having this kind of a meeting is not really productive, I would suggest that the subcommittee, the few
Yeah,
people
okay.
that really want and understand the budget, sit down, grind it out, and then bring the information back to the full committee.
Peggy?
Okay, well, I was asked as a member of the subcommittee to join the meeting with Mary Jane Handy
Yeah.
from the Department of Revenue. I think it was April 4th.
Yeah?
And she used the blackboard in the conference room, and her estimate, including our school lunch deficit, was that the way she was seeing it as of that moment was that she was looking at like $1 million in the hole.
What?
So I need to feel confident that that $1 million is turned into
So, Peggy,
$115,000.
do you know what it is? She never looked at 16. She never looked at 17. She only looked at 18 and looked at it at a big hole from a mistake that was put into the system multiple times. So you can't, and so, yeah, she,
So, but I mean, I haven't had anything from, or seen anything from her saying, oh, okay. I mean,
Yeah,
when
think-
I left that meeting,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, she was saying, right now, we were $1 million.
she was
Or a
including
little
the
while ago.
lunch deficit.
And you're stating
And you're stating
DOE
we're
was mistaken.
This
No,
is the
no,
Department of
what I'm
Revenue,
saying is-
Division of Local Services.
No, I'm not alluding to anything. I'm telling you exactly what she did and said. She looked just at that FY17 and made a huge assumption, and she said that all that deficit came in this year. And you can't do it without looking back.
I didn't realize that. Mr. Townsley and then Mr. Raymond, how's that? Yes.
What I'm seeing tonight is the same thing we see at every meeting. The information is requested and the information is not provided. It happens every meeting. If you don't have a plan with your numbers, you can't facilitate the answers to where you want to end up. I'm just disappointed in this the school committee and Ruth for how these meetings are operated. It's like a broken record. I've been coming to these for like 13 months, and this is where we end up every meeting. And we're gonna leave here not knowing, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna do the same thing again next month, I'll guarantee you.
Bob?
I have a question on the 2018 expenditure report. I'm looking at the white sheet you just handed out.
Yep.
And the tuition school choice charter school last year, we paid $607,000 into.
What page you on, Bob?
I'm on the purple sheet,
Purple sheet. You
2018.
said the white sheet.
Then I looked at the white sheet from
Correct.
last year. Last year, we paid out $607,000 in tuition, school choice, and charter school. Thus far, it looks like we paid out $307,000 on this expenditure 2018 report. $400,000. I'm wondering why that $400,000 figure isn't in the encumbered figure.
Wait,
Instead
you
of the
lost
last
me.
column, which would make the column in the last column only $90,000.
That's a good point.
The balance, school choice charter.
In the encumbered column, I think that $400,000 belongs there and not in the final column, which is the budget balance. And if that is the case, then that $490,000 figure becomes a lot lower.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, I don't,
I mean, how much are we paying to school choice and tuition this year?
700 and.
Right, well, you've only paid $307,000, it says right now.
$745,776 was the cherry sheet estimate for fiscal
Right,
18 for school choice sending and charter
Right, well,
schools.
that's probably the correct figure. But it looks to me like you paid $307,770. And you haven't encumbered any of the rest of the money that you owe. You've got in the last column, which says your budget balance.
Yeah, you're right, Bob.
Which is another 440,000.
So the last column should be 0,
No, the last
and the
column's probably gonna be
encumbrance,
like- Yeah. I mean,
the encumbrance should be 400,000,
Budget balance.
203.
600.
So in other words,
0.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're spending all of it, yes, it should be 0. Are we?
And
I
then
don't know.
some.
So Ruth?
Are we
This is-
spending all of it?
Brenda does the report, yeah.
Does the reports?
All right, so, it's on the,
That's a huge,
That would mean we would have a deficit in
Yeah.
the budget balance
all right.
of 200.
And can I address one more issue?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
is really upset, at least 2 of the selectmen are upset that the custodian at this school the night custodian has been cut out. That's part of the cuts that have been made. Bob Clancy has made that decision. I know I don't want him to cut a teacher, but it just puts a lot of more pressure on the regular custodian. It's got it for 44 days, the 3-hour a night. I don't want this school to have dirt on the floor where we're rubbing chairs back and forth, grading new tiles that we have in here. So he's made that decision, but I can tell you that the select board is not happy with that decision.
And I've invited the board to come in at any time to see how we're doing, but that's just one of the things
Oh, it
to
is.
do. The last
Are you
think
talking
we-
about the selectmen's board or the school committee?
Well, I opened that invitation to the
Thank
select board,
you.
but
We're invited.
obviously you're welcome anytime as well.
Oh, thank you.
So where are we now? Do you have more to,
Oh, we're not in the hole. But what I suggest is this, is if we can have a subcommittee meeting, I will get these documents, I'm gonna give you the whole, not like you have it by school, but the whole run, and I think we have a long budget subcommittee meeting with all the documents there to review it. And not have the whole committee, and just have that group that is dedicated to the business part of the district, sit down, get it, understand it, and then bring it back.
I like that idea, but I also think at this point, the whole committee, one of our major functions is to have our finger on the financial part. And I almost think that whoever is interested amongst the whole committee should be at a meeting where it's explained, because town meetings are coming up. And I, for one, have been attending all those budget meetings, and I don't want to get on the town meeting floor and try to explain it, because I don't think I can. And I think that if any school committee person is interested in learning more about it, we need to come with our ears open and our pencils and pens ready to write down things, because we all need to understand it with tax dollars out there. Maybe I'm all wet, but I see Sharon and Peg and Robin and John.
And Jane.
Oh, and Jane, okay.
Jane and I had our hands up.
We're going to go school committee people first, so.
So we've been asking the school committee, many of the members have asked to go through the line items, and then we were told, well, let the school principals go through and make their cuts, and then we'll come back with the recommendations and the cuts. We haven't really seen what cuts have been, line item type things, what cuts have been made. And then we ask again, let's go through the line items. Well, let's go back again and let the principals work on it some more. And we still have been denied the opportunity to do what we asked to do in the beginning, to go through the line items as a committee and do, recommend where we want the monies to be or not to be. And I think we need to do that.
Okay.
Leave it up to us now, not the principals anymore.
Peg?
I've been doing lots of reading since all our budget woes, and I found a publication put out by MASC under their District Governance Support Project, Evolving Issues in School Governance, and there's a lot in here. But one section that I wanted to mention tonight is that they say some school committees establish the most important subcommittees as a quote-unquote committee of the whole, meaning that it is comprised of the entire board membership. Often the budget committee is such a subcommittee of the whole. The advantage of the committee of the whole is that all members of the school committee may participate. So even if you've got 4 people and a couple want to come and participate, then we're violating the
open meeting law.
Yeah. And this is, this budget problem is going to continue. Our declining enrollment, the reduction in revenue, this is a huge issue, and it should really involve all of us every step of the way, and every question we have needs to be answered. Anyway, it's something to think about for the next time around.
Is that true if they're having a subcommittee meeting with 4 or 5 members that are on that subcommittee, and 2 school committee members show up and start discussing an issue? Does that create then an open meeting law violation?
Yeah.
So then we have to go and make a new policy of what we want this budget subcommittee to be.
Not for every subcommittee. They're suggesting just
budget subcommittee.
budget, and that was the example that they gave in this particular publication.
Adam, if we posted a regular school committee meeting and the only thing on the agenda was budget related, that would cover it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you'd have to have a full quorum of the school committee
No,
in order to have the meeting.
You would need, you'd need
Well, we
7
hope
people.
that we'll be
5
interested
people call
enough
out.
to show up, yeah.
So we'll have 5 people call out.
Okay.
That's what will happen.
Who had their
Well,
hands
we'll
up?
still have
Robin?
7.
Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was actually back to this discussion about the conversation that the administrative team had regarding fiscal year 18, our current year, which has either $290,000 or $90,000. But it sounded to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone on the admin team, that the discussion was made was a contingency plan in case something unexpected happens before the end of this fiscal year.
Correct.
You've already cut a janitor.
We did not cut a janitor.
I did an evening custodian, but for the most part, we've had, we're essentially not spending, is what we're doing. There's not really cuts. But what I had was an evening custodian, a part-time substitute for 3 hours a night, and I stopped his employment, discussed with my day custodian, set up a plan to make it work. And that's for the remainder of this fiscal year, which we're down to 41 days of school, and or 40 days of school. But the night custodian is back in the budget for fiscal 19.
So that's a cut, not a contingency.
I can speak to, I've just reviewed all of the line items from the Northfield budget, identified areas where there was a balance that would not need to be spent. In addition to any balances that, for example, we just received a tank of fuel. That's been paid, and we have $8,000 left in that line item. Consulted with our custodian regarding whether or not we expect to be able to make it through until July 1st with that remaining amount of fuel, so that we wouldn't have to purchase. That would be an $8,000. I mean, ideally, it would be better to purchase the fuel, but that's there on hold just in case. So that would be, I guess, a contingency plan. I also have the, it's a small amount, but as I mentioned, the librarian, the instructional assistant had resigned. That was a 17-hour, 3-day-a-week position. I'm replacing it with a sub for fewer hours, 2 days. Trying to squeeze out what I can.
Thank you.
And again, the sub line is problematic and unavoidable at this point. But there's also just a series of small, like, custodial supplies. We think we're good, you know, we can not purchase anything more unless it's an emergency, and things such as that.
And Elizabeth essentially said the same thing.
Was there somebody's hand down here I didn't see?
Is it you?
I just wanted to make a comment about the issue of subcommittee and full committee for discussing the budget. I think ideally, and I don't know if that's the circumstance right now, but ideally, I believe in the subcommittee system of having a smaller group of people work on the nitty-gritty, get all the information that they need, and pass it on to us. I'm just saying, ideally, this is the way it should work, because we have we're all on other committees. Negotiations is meeting every single week now. And I know policy is going to be meeting, and all of our subcommittees right now are busy. So we either eliminate the budget subcommittee altogether for future and have it a total, no longer have a budget subcommittee and have everybody involved from the beginning, or have a small group of people who are going to come faithfully. You understand what I'm saying? And then pass it on. Because if you have the whole committee and some people come 1 week and not the other week, you're losing the value of having the whole committee. If you're going to have the whole committee, you really have to be there. Because if you miss one meeting, well, you can catch up, but it's really difficult. So I guess it's up to the committee to decide whether they want a subcommittee or not a subcommittee.
But that's not going to be.
John, you were the only one, and then Jane.
Yeah, I just think it's a good idea for some other committee members to attend those meetings, because our crack team of subcommittee budget people overestimated our transportation reimbursement by $300,000. That's 2% of our budget. That's not chump change, that's huge. And we added a line item this year for special needs transportation for $350,000 just out of the blue. That's over 2% of our budget. That's 2.5%. Those two line items are 4.5% of our budget.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with attending, but what I mean is, do you want to have 12 people participating in the initial part? I don't know.
A discussion for a later date, I think.
A discussion not for tonight.
Okay, I promised Jane, and then we'll...
I will be extremely short.
Okay.
Right now, we're discussing a lot of things that should have happened or need to happen in the future, and we're not going to make those decisions tonight. So I think we need to move forward
Well, I have something to say
Jane?
after Jane.
Well, you should have called on me first.
Sorry.
I only had one thing to say then. That one thing is that while you've all been talking, I've been going back through my handy little notebook here.
Good.
And I don't see where there's ever been an encumbrance for the school choice tuition, all the way back to January. I don't have anything with me before January. So I know those numbers come from the state. So did we pick up the wrong numbers from the state, or did we enter something wrong and not catch the error? And why didn't any of us, including myself, question this back in January? That was the statement I was going to make then. I think the budget committee needs to start working a lot earlier. They should begin their work in October.
Yes.
And I think then that you should schedule interim updates for the whole committee.
Yes.
So you still have 5 people or whatever working on the budget. And they ought to meet in the superintendent's office with the accountant around the corner or the treasurer around the corner so they can get answers that they need. And I'll stop there. I'll
Thank
go
you.
on all night.
Sharon?
In relation to what Megan was saying about her budget and that $8,000 of monies that had been set aside for oil or whatever that line item.
It's what's remaining from that line item.
And you don't expect you
We
will,
hope that we can get through
okay.
to help offset potential deficits.
For simplicity's sake, let's just say that you've got an extra $8,000. Would that figure be an unencumbered
No,
or an encumbered figure, Ruth?
it's encumbered.
Encumbered but not spent.
But not spent.
Okay, can we have a list of all the encumbered figures not expected to be spent or not spent from every school in the district so that we know how much money is fluff?
There's no fluff.
Well, if it's not spent and it's in your,
It's just they're gonna be able to hold on to it.
Yeah.
well, okay.
Extra you're
Okay,
talking about.
extra. That you'll be able to use on something else. Would that be accurate?
No, it's to save it, to have some buffer left at the end of the year. If it's not spent, they'll leave it as a positive balance.
That's my whole point, that, I mean, if you've got a huge negative balance, and you've still got some positive balances, how many positive balances do we have in the budget? That's my whole point.
Right.
Sue?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's also true that there are legal lines in the budget, where, like, for example, administration or teacher pay, where money can be moved around without the approval of the school committee. But for example, if we were gonna move money from a fuel line to a teacher line, that actually requires the approval of the school committee. And the budget as it's currently structured in the paperwork works great for you guys and for us to see the overall school picture financially, but it doesn't allow us as a school committee to see the legal lines in the budget and to see if there's a need to shift money and to vote on that shift.
We haven't voted a single line transfer this year.
No, we haven't.
I've never seen you guys vote a line transfer.
We've
We've done it in the past. Yeah.
We've been asking to.
Just to take a deep breath and 2 seconds. Gail, how was the awarding for Penny?
It was very nice.
Thank you. That's what we needed, was some positivity at this point. Thank you for attending.
Penny,
Penny Betzold?
awesome.
And
Yes.
Jen also was there, Jen Albert Perry.
Oh, nice. That's great. So we know where she was. Fantastic.
Yeah, is she coming to the meeting now, Jen Albert Perry? No. Oh, why not? You're here. She lives in the
So was that all your plan for eliminating
Yeah.
the general fund?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all the plan.
How about the fiscal year 19 budget update?
Why don't we do that when I can give you, we can all sit down and just have that one item? Because right now, if well, if you want the update, but again, you know, the principals feel like they can work within their budget. They feel like they're gonna be able to be okay for FY 19. There is a concern about the sublines once again, and given that and how close the line items are in FY 17, I was
FY 18, yeah.
FY 19, sorry, FY 19, that we would be reducing staff from 3 up to 6 teachers, depending on what happens over the next couple months. And I know that there has been a past history of pink slipping non-professional status teachers at the end of the year, just to give you some time and buffer to you know, make sure that your budget's in order before you move forward. Seems to be a practice of many districts, and not one that I particularly agree with or like. But at this point, given where your FY 19 budget is, given where we are, I think that trying to live on that FY 19 budget will be incredibly difficult, and to be able to meet the needs of the students. So again, that conversation and that whole process has to have some people that really understand and are willing to make suggestions and look at things to make decisions. But that's where the FY 19 is at this moment.
Is the committee happy with that? Yes, Sue?
No.
Well, the Curriculum and Personnel Committee is meeting next week, and we are, in our policy, it's our job to look at changes to job descriptions and to address some of the changes that are coming our way that are happening. And I looked at all the budget numbers for FY 19, trying to figure out, with the bottom number, what could we do? And I just wonder if it makes sense to say out loud what I think I understand is planned for in that budget in terms of changes in personnel. Would that be a good idea? So I think we had budgeted for a half-time superintendent, right? We had budgeted for a half-time business manager. We had budgeted for a curriculum coordinator.
Halftime, they're saying.
For the whole district, just half?
Well, I think right now it was just the.
I had 80,000 for elementary and Pioneer.
Pioneer only.
Just Pioneer only? Okay.
Halftime,
Halftime, okay.
and how much?
That's probably 40.
Right, okay.
Last line.
So just Pioneer, okay.
Trying to get.
A halftime food service person? Right? That was in people's figures? It's hard to track. What I did was I used the administrator's ask budget that had the first cuts and second cuts in the document. And I looked at the calculation for first cuts, second cuts, and it looks like, well, it's complicated, but that's where we are, okay? Halftime superintendent, halftime business manager, halftime food services person, halftime curriculum coordinator. Well, we had a full-time curriculum coordinator in there, so they're saying that as far as they understand, halftime. Okay? Okay. I can get the nitty-gritty later. I just want to start the process of thinking about the positions and getting clear on it.
Were those the only ones you were speaking of, Sue?
Yeah, that was what I wanted to clarify. Not the whole. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other information we need at this point?
Should I share what Alan Genevieve said at the superintendent?
Yep.
He's joined the superintendent search committee to help us formulate our criteria and our questions for our interim halftime superintendent interviews. He said with the loss of the assistant superintendent and using a halftime interim superintendent, that we would need a full-time business manager, finance person, whatever title. That was his take on it, and is he currently a superintendent?
In Winchester.
So, I mean, are we being
He's like the same height of the
realistic?
firm.
Yeah, haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah, and we don't have that budgeted.
We don't have no.
And we may have to squeak through a tough year and then try to build up, but I think this is kind of where we are.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's budgets that have to be built and state reports that have to be submitted, and there's a lot of, have to do things that it isn't, you know.
Is there anybody down there that had any hands raised? I just can't see both ends of the table at once. Okay. All right, shall we move on?
One last
Please.
question.
Okay, one last question.
Do we have a tech coordinator for the district or not? No, right? It's budgeted? Full-time?
It is? Good.
For all schools?
Well,
The whole
A
district?
district. Good. Okay, so now we,
Can we put FY19 budget on the next
Calendar.
agenda?
Yes.
For the next meeting and go into it in much more detail?
and hopefully materials will be ready so we can have them explained.
Absolutely, it's time to sort of go beyond this document.
Yeah.
To do this, oh, we have
Yeah.
calendar.
Problem is with all this budget discussion is both Warwick and Northfield have town meetings before we get together again.
Yep.
And I, for one, am going to have a really hard time explaining this budget at a town meeting because I do not understand it, and I've been at every budget meeting there has been. I don't know how the rest of the people feel. Peg, you're going to be in life, and do you feel you can talk about the budget?
I'll do my best.
Yeah,
mean,
I know. It's,
Maybe we need to have a special
Line
budget
later,
meeting.
though.
I think maybe we do need a special budget meeting sometime before the 7th of May, when there's two. I think probably David, as chair, has had more information and understands what's going on than the rest of the people on the subcommittee. But I'm not sure that the rest of us know what's going on. Just for information only. So we have an option A and we don't have an option B. Must be because,
The calendar.
yeah, of the calendar.
Because that's been chosen by the faculty.
So this must have,
Decide about that budget meeting before we move on?
the chairman of the budget subcommittee is not here, he left.
He had a,
So, yeah, he did need to.
but I thought
So-
you meant, full committee meeting.
Yeah, to discuss the
Okay.
budget, be ready for town.
Well, we
If
have a
we-
meeting scheduled for the 10th that we aren't going to be using, so.
Yeah, but our
The meeting is
subcommittee
the
meeting
7th.
has to be before this, or it has to be before the 7th. So,
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you just said. The May 10th meeting was to be deciding on the
And that's not-
superintendent, but
yeah,
that's not happening,
that-
so we're using it for budget instead?
no, we cannot, because that's after the Warwick and Northfield school, town meetings.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have to come
So
up
you're
with a
trying to
date
find
that might
something.
work. Do people want to set a date now
We only have 1 week.
For what?
for a budget meeting where we can figure out how to speak about it at a town meeting, or however you want to call it?
Jeannie has her hand up. The bus arrived in DC.
Oh, good.
good.
Yay. Yoo-hoo. They're there.
7:42, we are here.
Jeannie?
There's only 1 week in which to have
So-
a meeting.
As you said yourself, Pat, that David probably is more knowledgeable.
Uh-huh.
What if we asked David to write out
Write
a
up some
summary
talking
of the
points?
budget that the rest of us could use could reference at town meeting?
What,
Shouldn't that come from the superintendent?
Superintendent's usually been at the meetings to help
Shouldn't the
with the
list
budget.
help with it?
That's fine. I was just
explain it.
reiterating
understand what you're
what
saying.
Pat had said
I hear you.
about David.
So what are people thinking? Do we want to have a meeting? Do we want to just have a review? What do we want to do?
I would like to have a meeting to feel prepared.
I didn't bring in my list.
I didn't
from the
either.
We just scheduled 3 meetings in the
next
next 2
2
weeks
weeks,
for
yeah.
superintendent
I have no
search.
free
Right,
time
so-
next week, period.
Robin?
I think I have sort of two ideas.
Okay.
And these are my thoughts, or
Good.
what
We
I was
need those.
thinking. I think the idea of a summary document, just a talking points, I would personally suggest a bulleted list.
I think
I'm
that's-
comfortable with either Ruth or David, or some combination of Ruth and David. Ruth, because I think she's developed this budget with the admin team, and David, because I think he's very articulate in describing these things in a town meeting setting. And I also think that probably folks at on the admin team would be willing to meet with people individually, and that way we don't have to figure out a time when 12 people can get together.
Are you gonna be at these meetings? Because you haven't been to a meeting in a long time, Robin. These are great ideas, but we need you here.
So before I can stand up at town meeting and say, please support this budget, I have to feel confident that it's gonna cover our needs for fiscal 19. And I'm not getting that feeling. I mean,
It's too late. You voted that amount.
Yeah, that's-
That's what you have to go to.
oh no, I'm not gonna ask for any more, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what your problem is. I really don't understand your problem.
sometimes it's you, but.
That's easy. If I can tell you, I will leave right now, and then you will. Boy, won't you be in Rose's
I think our problem is, we know the budget, we voted to keep the towns to the amount that they thought they could pay.
And we have to work with
I think part of our problem is that we voted a figure that we, in our hearts, don't think we can work with. We will work with it, but whether we can do the job that our kids deserve, probably not. All of us know that our household budgets have gone up more than $10,000 in a year. Say nothing about a $4 million or $14 million budget. We went up $10,000. That's ridiculous. And I think anybody that thinks that we can do a job that we've done this year, next year with that amount, are full of beans. I don't think it's going to happen. We're going to work like crazy to make sure it does, but it's not going to look like it does now, or that it did last year. And maybe that's what the townspeople want, I don't know. But don't think that it's the school committee is happy at wanting it, because we're not. We did it because the towns told us we had to for them to get our vote. So that's what we did. We need to understand it more for us to be comfortable. Bill?
I'd like to suggest that the budget subcommittee, or some combination of the subcommittee, put together a brief summary that, within the next couple of days, that can be disseminated to the rest of us.
Okay, is that a motion?
I guess it is.
Before we do the motion, can I just say?
Yep.
Last year, I requested what was the budget document sent to the towns. And when it came back to me, it had line items in it, and it had explanations next to it. And I'm told that that's the type of document that goes to the town administrators once the town assessments are determined for town meeting, and once we've voted a bottom line. Is that anything the towns have seen? A document that outlines the budget to the towns with line item information and information about?
Not from this district.
Okay. I was told that was the document I was receiving. Okay. All right.
It's a letter. It says this is what the school committee voted, 14 million whatever. This is the amount that will be assessed to the town, 9 million whatever. Your share is this. It will be billed to you in 5 equal installments starting and whatever.
Yes.
I'm confused. Do you have a motion pending on the floor?
No, I
Yes.
just wanted to
And
clarify.
has it been seconded?
No.
Why are we having discussion?
I don't know.
You want to dispose of your motion first and then carry on?
But carry on. Sue, that was a second, was it not?
Second.
I thought it was.
The motion is.
All those in favor of the motion?
No.
What,
Can you
It was
read
Bill's
that
motion.
for us?
It was Bill's
Was
motion?
Yes.
the budget subcommittee or part of the subcommittee put together a summary document?
Why isn't the superintendent included in that?
That was Bill's motion.
Okay.
I'd like to amend that motion.
Okay.
No.
No, you have to get the amendment first. All right, Sharon?
Same motion, except I want to add that the superintendent should be making this list and the recommendations.
In conjunction
And be at the
with?
meeting.
what meeting?
I don't understand.
This, do you mean in conjunction with
Budget
the?
subcommittee.
Yeah,
with
what
the-
the subcommittee.
Okay.
She is anyway, certainly.
Okay, so
That's my.
can you read the motion and the amendment for me?
No, because
Okay, so,
I'm not clear on the amendment.
me neither.
So that the superintendent will attend a budget subcommittee meeting?
No.
And compile the list that they're talking, that the subcommittee needs to draft during that meeting. It should be a superintendent that does that, not the subcommittee.
Then you want to defeat the motion on the floor and present your motion.
Yeah.
So you, wait, are we amending the motion to
We're
say?
having a conversation
Okay.
to figure out what we are doing.
So what was Bill's motion?
That the budget subcommittee put together some talking points or a summary that can be relayed to the rest of us within the next couple of days.
And Sharon's amendment was that
Bruce
the
should be involved in
superintendent.
that as well.
That's right.
Okay?
Well, I'm on the budget subcommittee, and I don't feel like I can put together the talking points for you, so.
So let's vote first on the amendments, and then we'll decide what on the motion.
Then we're
So-
gonna what? Excuse me, then we'll what?
And then we'll vote on the motion, all right? So the amendment was to include the superintendent in drawing up the talking points, or the bullet points,
Have her draw.
okay?
Yeah, the
So-
Have her
was
do it or to have her
What-
help the subcommittee?
Just one
Wanna read
person
it
should do
again?
it.
Well, my understanding of the amendment is to have the superintendent attend, I mean,
I was
but the budget subcommittee cannot put together talking points without having a meeting, so I just.
Yes, they can.
I don't know, the superintendent could email us talking points to take to the, if she's not
So
gonna
that's-
be at the meeting.
The point is that the superintendent should be coming up with the information and the talking
help us
points
out?
and.
Trying to get this thing fixed. I'm not sure either.
Wait,
When I asked for help, I was just told, I don't know what you're wanting to accomplish. I'm beginning to feel that same way.
Okay, I'm gonna rescind my amendment.
Okay.
You wanna start again? So whoever made the motion can clarify
I
it?
thought it was pretty simple. Maybe David could email us some talking points, but Apparently not. No, if you want to defeat it, but I made the motion, go ahead.
Okay, so Bill's motion was to
Have the
have,
budget subcommittee put together some talking points and summary, distribute to the full committee.
Yes.
within the next few days, couple days, I believe.
Yeah.
Was told, okay. All right, that's a motion.
And I'll amend that.
Has seconded that.
Okay. Now, your amendment,
Is that Ruth be involved with the talking points, not just David
or this, or the
or
committee.
the committee, but Ruth needs to be the one,
Okay,
along with.
all right, so we're gonna, yes, we move to participate. Okay, so a vote on the motion, I mean, on the
There's no second
amendment?
on the amendment.
Okay, is there a second on the amendment?
I'll second it.
Okay. The amendment to include roof? All those in favor?
I don't even know. Wait, what are we voting on?
The amendment to include roof on the talking points.
I think that's fine.
1, 2, 3.
Yes.
It looks,
That was a given.
The amendment.
The amendment will be included in the talking
okay.
points.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, opposed? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Did you get the
Yeah,
abstentions?
and, there were abstentions too? No, we were
Opposed, I mean.
And are you voting?
I'm not.
Bill made the motion.
Okay, so that motion carries.
Okay. Now we have to vote on the motion, because that was the amendment. Okay? All those in favor of the motion?
Are you in favor of the motion?
That looks unanimous. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does.
For the,
The motion, yes, yes. Okay. So the motion passed with the amendment. All right, moving on. Yeah. We have a school calendar in front of us, and I would imagine since we only have one option, that was the option of the teachers, which is a good thing because they're the ones that have to come back and not us.
is that a question or a statement? Is it was drafted by the teachers?
I would expect, as usual, the teachers are usually given a couple options, and this is their option they chose.
What are we talking about?
The
Calendar.
calendar, I move
calendar?
that we accept it.
I'll second.
We need to hear the.
No. We just, the union voted for that calendar. Now they need to vote the calendar.
Yeah.
Let's
There's
not
a
get-
I made a
motion and a
motion,
second.
it's been seconded.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? That looks unanimous. The first unanimous vote we've had
Oh, I
all night.
missed
I
my
love it.
hand. I thought we were done.
Unanimous.
First, we had another one.
I know, we have had some other ones.
Proof I did.
Okay.
There's 3 of them.
Moving on. We have principal administrators reports twice. I don't think we need that twice.
We missed number 6.
Oh, full discussion of personnel, yes, we need that one, because that was something that Sue had asked about at a past meeting. So we need a discussion, as this reads.
So, it's really pretty clear that, for those of you that, you must have the agenda, the loss of the assistant superintendent and how we're exactly going to cover a full-time superintendent, full-time assistant superintendent, and those, what are the proposals? Well, honestly, I have no idea how you're gonna do it, because you have a half-time person that you're trying to hire for food service that we don't have, and we probably will not have, because they're very sparse, and just a half-time position will be extremely hard to fill. So I'm not quite sure what you're gonna do with that, because Gail did a yeoman's share of the food service program for the last few years. She went to courses, you name it, she did it. She saved you a ton of money. She redistricted all of it in an effort to make it good for kids and to make it good for the district. And she will be lost. And in addition to her, she doesn't only just do that. Pam does the majority of financing and fixing the budget, financing and bringing in and the cash that was the revenue. So she has a whole big piece to it, and then the treasurer has a piece of it. So thinking that you're going to have a half-time person that absorbs all that is really not very smart, I guess, is the best word I can think of. In addition to that, how exactly are you going to, you asked me for this, I'm going to tell you now. For a half-time superintendent.
Way before this.
Huh?
Should have told us way before this.
Oh, I didn't tell you anything. You guys have been making the decisions about what you want to hire and what you want to do. You've been having meetings, and that's what you should be doing. It's not my job to tell you how to fill my job.
I'm not asking you to say
Okay,
that.
so so you do have a large issue, and now you're having you need a part-time superintendent. Okay, well, you can maybe find one of those, but the difficulty of all of this is that the conversations that we've been having of late and for a while is not productive, and it's not making anybody feel like this is a great district to come to. Quite honestly,
Used to be a great.
oh, okay,
Right, that's enough.
Enough. The bottom line is that you have limited resources, you have declining enrollments, you have class sizes in schools that are low that you need to deal with. There's a much larger picture here other than just whether I give you a report that you're looking for. These kinds of questions have to be answered by the school committee. I can make recommendations all day long, but if you're not going to listen to them, then it's not even worth making the recommendation. So I absolutely would have ideas about this, but I think that you all have to think about what are your priorities? Is your priority a superintendent? Is your priority a budget manager? There's another half-time person. You haven't even gotten your central office squared away, and I am concerned. I think that you're going to need a full-time cafeteria person. You're going to need more help. But arguing about things and not trying to come up with a global view of what do you want your central office to look like?
What it used to.
That is part of the problem. You can't go back. The economy's changed. The world's changed. The way everything is gone with the department changes. But you want to set yourself back, you can. Go ahead. Then that's maybe something that you want to put framework around. But don't have in your mind that you want to go back and then you ask for recommendations of how to move forward. It can't work that way. You guys have to start communicating with one another.
You're the one that needs to communicate
No,
with us on the
actually,
budget. We have
Sharon-
asked for figures for the last 3 years,
Sharon,
and you haven't given it
that
to us.
is
We're not getting
not
anywhere with this item. Can we move on?
the issue.
That's a good idea. Subcommittee reports, has there been any subcommittees that has met just recently?
Negotiations has been meeting every week since beginning of March, middle of February, actually. But I can't give any more report because it's
Negotiations.
It's negotiations.
We've been having weekly meetings.
Weekly meetings.
Getting to know each other. And tonight at 5 o'clock, we met with the search committee. And Alan Genovese, who is a resident of Warwick, was on our school committee for a few years and then went on to become a superintendent, and now is a superintendent in Winchester. Has kindly offered to help us through the road, I guess, or the journey of coming up with questions and helping us with all the nitty-gritty that we need to have to interview. And we, as Peggy just said, have got meetings twice next week and once the week after, and Megan, am I right on those? Isn't it twice next week? Yeah. And we will be working on that. Our hope for interviewing and having the job filled by the 10th of May, I don't think is going to happen, but hopefully by the time we have our next school committee meeting, we will have that information. I know it's going to be a busy, busy time for us to do it, but we need to move on and get people in place. We also have been working on what to do with a budget, with either financial director or business manager, and we have lots of options out there. Everything from MASC to, MASBO, which is Massachusetts Association of School Business Officers, and private concerns, and we're not quite sure where we're going yet. We thought we knew, but now we don't know what we don't know. So it's a little more convoluted than you'd think. So hopefully by the end of June, we'll know exactly what we're doing. But we are having meetings often, so we're going to move things along.
So Pat, we're not meeting on May 10th?
No, we're not meeting on May 10th, so take that off your calendar.
And our next meeting in May is the 24th?
24th, yeah.
That's before the regular committee meeting?
That's the regular school committee meeting.
What time and where?
What?
Leiden?
Yes, it's Leiden, and I would assume
At
it's
7
o'clock in Leiden.
What's this special?
That's usually the.
I know this is
Earlier
the
last year, and I
answer.
didn't remember, so I just want to make sure
Yeah,
I'm there on time.
right.
Town hall?
Town hall, I don't know, town hall or school? School?
At the school.
Okay. It was town hall last year for,
It was the town hall last.
That's what I was confused.
At
it was last
Leiden?
year. Yeah, it was last
It,
year.
at Pearl Roads, we were in the town hall.
Yeah.
We don't have to.
Well, subject to change, we'll see, but right now, we're thinking Leiden Elementary.
Okay.
Town meetings are listed.
7 o'clock?
Building and
confirmed?
grounds.
What, building and grounds has a meeting coming up, but all right, you need to tell us what didn't happen, you're right.
Building and Grounds did have a meeting and no one showed except for interested people, but none of my school committee members showed up. So we are going to, I'm going to ask tonight if the Building and Grounds Subcommittee can meet the 22nd of May.
Tuesdays are terrible for me unless we meet early or late.
We can't do it Thursday, so, sorry, that's
What time?
7 o'clock? Does that work?
7 I can do, yeah. Like I said.
22nd?
May what?
22nd.
22nd of May at Leiden,
Okay.
7 o'clock.
Okay, do you have any thing to tell us about the meeting?
What
You
meeting?
said you needed a vote.
No, I can't have a vote tonight. We have to have a discussion first. We
Okay.
have to have a
Okay.
vote tonight.
All right,
So,
all right.
we'll meet the 22nd.
Okay. Not even on the votes? Okay, all right. As you can see, there are town meetings scheduled for May 7th, June 6th, and May 19th. And if you want to know times, ask the people from your town as to what time, and I'm sure they know. Graduations, and I always do my plea for Pioneer graduation as well as elementary graduations, because our sixth graders are equally important to our seniors. But first one we have is June 1st at Pioneer. So I would love to see if we could have all 12 members sitting up front, cheering on our kids. They worked really hard to make it through. I don't know how many people of the committee were over to see the portfolio review presentations. I know Sue and I were both there. They were great. The kids did a wonderful job and worked really hard. And Jim was there too. Yep, you were. But it was great to see them, and if you could, the problem is they have them during the middle of the day on a Friday.
Right.
And it's hard for people to get out of work to do it. Some of us were lucky to be able to do it, but if you could sort of figure it out sometime, it's really worthwhile. But if you can't, then a 6:30 graduation is another way to show your thanks for the effort the kids put in. So let the central office know, and they will put a seat with your name on it right up front. So saying that, there is other business, which is proposed changes to the district agreement. And what was that?
I make a motion to pass over that tonight.
Okay.
Well,
Jean?
It
All right.
was previously discussed, actually.
Yeah.
Was it not, isn't that?
Yeah, it was.
Well, it was just that it's going to town floor.
It's already on the
Okay,
warrant.
so motion and a second to pass over. We need a motion, no, just a motion to pass over is all you need. Discussion to clear up confusion about appropriate roles. What was that?
Where's that?
David put it on.
See that?
We didn't vote on the motion.
But there was we didn't vote on that.
We don't need to. A motion to pass over is a motion to pass over, and you do it.
Who knew? I didn't know that.
We don't have to vote it?
No discussion.
So there's no discussion to clear up confusion about appropriate roles. I don't know who put it on or anything.
David put it on.
David did.
Okay, all right. So our special meeting is of Thursday the 10th is not there, and our next meeting is in the cafeteria at Pearl Road at 7.
CMP is May 1st at 5:30.
Okay, CMP is May 1st.
At 5:30.
Bring your May basket. I think that's a night we have a,
Negotiation.
I think we have a search meeting that night too. Or maybe we did it at 7.
Ours is at 7.
Okay, so we did that so we could work together.
We didn't go over the personnel sheet?
Nothing on it?
Look at it.
I don't,
We did.
It's already a done deal, so
I think we're good. Okay, I want somebody to make the motion we've been waiting for all night.
Not me.
You were not